Hey guys, tonight we are going on a little trip back in time. But we're not here to witness epic battles or stroll through grand masquerade balls. No, we're diving into something far more intimate and infinitely more awkward. We're going to experience what it was like to be a monarch facing the single most stressful job requirement of all, producing an heir. Forget dragons and political intrigue, the real drama you'll find happens behind the royal chamber doors, with a whole team of very serious, very misguided people watching your every move. It's a world where your personal biology is a matter of national security. And trust me, you deep probably crack under the pressure. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps the channel more than you know, and while you're at it, drop me a comment and let me know what city you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now. I love seeing where you all are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice when you wake up isn't the light, but the weight. Not just the metaphorical weight of your kingdom, which is always there, a dull ache between your shoulder blades. No, this is a more immediate, physical weight. It's the sheer tonnage of the bed linens, layers of wool, fur-lined blankets, and heavy brocade coverlets are piled on top of you, designed to ward off the damp, bone-deep chill of your stone castle. Even in the royal chambers, comfort is a relative term. You lie still for a moment, listening. The fire has died down to a soft, cracking whisper in the enormous hearth across the room. Outside the thick, naked glass of the window, the world is still cloaked in that pre-dawn grey. The only other sound is the slow, rhythmic breathing of your spouse beside you in the grand, four-poster bed. A bed that feels less like a sanctuary of rest and more like a stage. Slowly, you push yourself up. The air is cold on your skin. Your gaze drifts around the room, taking in the familiar sights. The towering tapestries on the walls depict heroic hunts and ancient battles, stories of virile ancestors and their glorious triumphs. They seem to mock you this morning. Every woven figure, every conquering hero, serves as a silent reminder of your own perceived failure. Because that's the real weight, isn't it? It's the gnawing, ever-present anxiety that has become your constant companion. It's the quiet desperation that follows you from the throne room to the dinner table and, most pointedly, to this very bed. You are a monarch. You are God's chosen representative on earth, the linchpin of the entire kingdom. But you have failed in your most fundamental duty. You have not produced an heir. This isn't a private disappointment. It's a public crisis. This is a core piece of history we often gloss over for a dynasty. An heir wasn't a nice to have. It was the entire system's primary insurance policy. A legitimate heir meant stability. It meant a smooth succession. It meant your powerful, ambitious cousins and a few opportunistic neighboring kings cowed and start sharpening their knives and dying your throne. An empty cradle was an open invitation to chaos and civil war. Every person in your kingdom, from the highest lord to the lowliest farmer, understood this. Their peace and prosperity depended on the future of your bloodline. And so, your life has become a performance of potency. You walk with a straight back, project an aura of command, and make decisions of state. But underneath the velvet endearment, you feel like a fraud. You see it in the eyes of your counselors, that flicker of concern, quickly masked by professional deference. You hear it in the whispers of the court ladies, their voices dropping to a hush as you pass. Is it pity or is it contempt? It's impossible to tell. And the not knowing is a special kind of torture. Here's a little detail that makes it all worse. Your bedchamber isn't even entirely private. The ceremonies of the lever and cowker are formal. Witnessed rising and going to bed of the monarch mean that high-ranking nobles are often present as you prepare for the day or for sleep. They help you with your robe. They hand you a cup of wine. And all the while, you know what they're thinking. They're observing. They're speculating. They're wondering if tonight you will finally succeed in your great matter. The most private aspect of your life is a subject of public obsession and political calculation. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, your bare feet meeting the cold stone floor. You look at your own reflection in a polished silver mirror on the wall, a hazy, distorted version of yourself. And you wonder. This is where historians still debate how much did rulers like you truly believe in the divine mandate. They claim, do you genuinely see your predicament as a sign of God's disfavor, a punishment for some unknown sin, or are you a pragmatist at heart, seeing this not as a spiritual crisis, but as a frustrating biological problem that threatens to unravel all your political work? The answer is probably a messy, human combination of both. A soft knock comes at the door. Your attendance. The day is beginning. Another day of maintaining the facade. Another day of hopeful prayers and crushing silences. But you feel a shift in the air today. The anxiety that's been simmering for months, for years, has reached its boiling point. The whispers have grown too loud to ignore. The counselor's glances are no longer subtle. The pressure has become unbearable. Something must be done, and you know, with a sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, that the people being summoned to help will not be bringing simple words of comfort. They'll be bringing solutions. And their solutions will be anything but simple. The door swings open, silent as a ghost on well-oiled hinges. Your high-ranking attendants enter, a small, practiced procession. They move with a quiet efficiency that borders on a religious rite. They are the keepers of your public image, the architects of your royal persona, and their first job is to assemble you for the day. You stand, and the performance begins. One attendant holds up a linen shirt, warmed by the fire. Another helps you into your breeches. Each piece of clothing is presented with a gravity you might associate with sacred relics. The hose, the doublet, the fur-lined robe, they don't just dress you, they construct you. Layer by layer. They transform you from a mere person into a symbol, and as they work, you feel their hands on you, not with intimacy or familiarity, but with a detached, professional precision. It's the way a museum curator might handle a priceless, fragile artifact. Your arms are lifted. Your body is turned. You are the central mannequin in a daily pageant of power. Your body, you've long since realized, does not belong to you. It is an asset of the state, a piece of national property as vital as the treasury or the royal seal. Unlike any valuable asset, it is subject to constant, relentless scrutiny. Every aspect of your physical existence is observed, recorded, and analyzed for its potential impact on the kingdom's stability. The food placed before you at every meal is a prime example. You don't just eat what you fancy. Your diet is a carefully curated menu, designed by the royal physician to maintain your health. But it's also a public spectacle. During formal meals, known in some courts as the Grand Covet, you eat in front of an audience of nobles. They watch every bite. Did you favor the roast capon or the pottage of leeks? Did you drink 1 cup of wine? Or to a hearty appetite could be read as a sign of vigor and strength. April 1 could start rumors of illness and weakness, sending ripples of uncertainty through the court. This obsession with your bodily functions goes far beyond your dinner plate. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is private. This brings us to one of the most prestigious and, to our modern minds, utterly bizarre positions in the royal household: the groom of the stool. This wasn't some lowly servant. This was often a high-born nobleman, a trusted confidant, and his primary duty to attend you during your most private moments on the chamber pot or commode. It sounds like the world's worst job, but it was a position of immense power and influence. The groom of the stool had unparalleled private access to you, the monarch. He was your first in the morning and last at night advisor, but his original, more clinical function was to monitor your output. Your stool was seen as a primary indicator of your health. Its color, consistency, and smell were all considered vital data points. The groom would be responsible for monitoring it and reporting any abnormalities to the royal physicians. Just imagine the health of the nation being partly determined by a daily inspection of your bowel movements. It's a perfect, almost comical illustration of just how little of your physical self was truly your own. And that's the question historians are still untangling today. What was the psychological toll of such an existence? Did you, as a monarch raised in this system, simply accept it as normal? Did you truly internalize the idea that your body was a public vessel, its functions a matter of statecraft? Or did you, in the dark, quiet moments after the attendants had finally left, feel a profound sense of violation? Did you ever just want to eat a piece of bread without someone noting it down? Or have a stomach ache without it becoming a subject for a council meeting? This line between the public monarch and the private person was almost non-existent, and how individuals coped with that erasure is a deep and fascinating human question. Lately, however, the nature of the scrutiny has changed. It has narrowed, becoming sharper and more focused. The attendants' eyes no longer just check if you look well rested. They seem to be searching for a sign, a spark of vitality that might translate into an heir. The questions from your physician, once general inquiries about your sleep and appetite, are now uncomfortably specific. He asks about your humors, your heat, your vital energies, all in a clinical, detached tone that makes your skin crawl. Today, there's the final. Heavy robe is settled onto your shoulders and the chain of office is placed around your neck. You are fully assembled. You are the king, or queen. You look the part, but the leaden weight in your stomach tells you the performance is becoming harder to maintain. Your chief attendant, a man whose face is a mask of perfect neutrality, steps forward and bows. Your Majesty, he says, his voice slow and formal. The royal physicians are assembled. They await your audience in the council chamber. They say the matter is of some urgency. The moment has arrived. The period of quiet observation is over. The time for solutions has begun. And as you walk towards the chamber, the heavy tapestry muffling the sound of your footsteps, you feel a profound sense of dread. You are no longer just being watched. You are about to become an experiment. You push open the heavy oak doors to the council chamber. The room is familiar, a place of power where you've debated matters of war, law, and diplomacy. But today, it feels different. It feels smaller, more claustrophobic, like a physician's examination room. The air is thick with the scent of dried herbs, beeswax, and something vaguely medicinal that clings to the heavy robes of the men assembled within. 3 of them stand waiting. Your kingdom's most esteemed physicians. They are not the charlatans or village heads, which as you might imagine these are educated men, learned in the works of Galen and Hippocrates, graduates of the finest universities in Padua or Bologna. They are the pinnacle of medical science for their time, and that is precisely what makes this so terrifying. They bow in unison as you enter, their faces etched with a solemnity usually reserved for a deathbed. There's a theatrical gravity to the way they carry themselves. You gesture for them to rise, moving to your customary chair at the head of the long table. The room falls silent, the only sound the distant, mournful cry of a hawk circling the castle towers. The lead physician, a man named Alistair with a long, grey beard that seems to hold the wisdom of ages, steps forward. He doesn't meet your eyes directly, instead focusing on a point just over your shoulder, as if addressing the very concept of the monarchy itself. Your Majesty, he begins, his voice a low, resonant hum. We have, for many months, observed the delicate balance of the humors within the royal person. We have prayed. We have consulted the ancient texts, and we have noted a persistence of imbalance. There it is, the opening salvo, wrapped in the impenetrable jargon of their profession. But you know what he means. You're not getting your wife pregnant, and we're here to fix it. The silence that follows his statement is profound. In this room, no one would dare speak of the matter so plainly. That is the function of the court, to communicate the most brutal truths through the most delicate, coded language. The lack of an heir is not a personal failure, it is a humoral imbalance. Your frustration is not anxiety, it is an excess of black bile. Your most intimate life is being discussed as if it were a faulty piece of plumbing. And as the physician stand there, radiating an aura of profound certainty, another, more insidious process is beginning. The whispers. The court is a whispering gallery, an ecosystem that thrives on rumor and speculation. While these men talk of humors and imbalances in the council chamber, the courtiers outside are speaking in much cruder terms. You can almost hear them, the ladies in waiting, fanning themselves as they watch the queen, their eyes full of a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. Still no news. One might murmur behind her fan. They say the king spends his evenings in prayer, not in the bedchamber. The ambitious lords and dukes, your own cousins and rivals, gather in shadowed alcoves. Their whispers are more pointed, more dangerous. The lion is weak, one might say, swirling the wine in his goblet. A kingdom without an heir is a ship without a rudder. Perhaps a stronger hand is needed. These aren't just idle gossip, they are political maneuvering. Every rumor is a test, a probe searching for weakness in the foundations of your power. Your virility has become a direct proxy for your political strength. This is a cold, hard fact of monarchical rule that is often overlooked. We think of power in terms of armies and treasuries. But in this era, it was also deeply, primarily biological. A ruler who could not reproduce was seen, on some fundamental level, as failing to master their own domain, their own body, and if they couldn't rule their own flesh, how could they possibly rule a kingdom? Even the servants, the grooms, the cooks in the kitchen, they're all part of this network. They see which tonics are being delivered to your chambers. They see the priests coming and going at odd hours. They see the strain on your face and the queen's, and they talk. Their gossip, filtered up through the layers of the court, confirms the fears of the nobles and emboldens your enemies. This brings us to a fascinating and still debated point among historians. How much of the infertility crisis in royal families was actually biological versus political? There are cases where a king would set aside a wife for failing to produce an heir, only for her to remarry and have a dozen children with a new husband. Was the problem with the king all along, or was the accusation of barrenness simply the most convenient, unchallengeable excuse to get rid of a politically inconvenient wife and try again with a new one from a more advantageous alliance? The answer is murky. A complex web of biology, personal feelings, and cold-blooded political strategy. Back in the council chamber, the second physician clears his throat. H.E.S. a younger man, eager to impress, and he unrolls a large parchment chart on the table. It's a complex diagram of the human body, crisscrossed with lines and astrological symbols. Your Majesty, he says, his finger tracing one of the lines. As Master Alistair has indicated, the issue is one of equilibrium. The body is a microcosm of the universe, governed by the same forces. To restore your vital energies, we must first restore this divine balance. We have devised a regimen. You look from his earnest, slightly fanatical face to the serene, unshakable confidence of his mentor. They are not offering suggestions. They are presenting a cure. They have the full weight of tradition, science, and public expectation on their side. To refuse them would be to admit defeat. To reject wisdom itself, it would be seen as a sign of weakness, of a monarch unwilling to do what is necessary for the good of the realm. You have no choice. You are trapped by your title, by the expectations of your people, and no, by the unshakable certainty of these men who are about to turn your life and your body into their personal laboratory. Proceed, you say, your voice sounding hollow in the grand chamber. Master Alistair, the lead physician, gives a slow, deliberate nod, as if you have just passed some crucial test. He gestures to the younger physician, who steps forward, his eyes gleaming with the fervor of a true believer. The chart he unfurled on the table isn't just a random drawing, it's the very foundation of his worldview. The operating manual for the human body as he understands it. Your Majesty, he begins, his voice taking on the cadence of a university lecturer. To understand the remedy, we must first appreciate the cause, all of creation, from the mightiest star to the humblest worm, is composed of four essential elements: earth, water, air, and fire. He pauses for effect, letting the weight of this universal truth settle in the room. This isn't some fringe theory he cooked up, this is the bedrock of Western medicine. A system that has dominated sophisticated thought for over 1,000 years. It is the theory of the four humors, first systemized by the ancient Greeks, most notably Hippocrates, and later expanded upon by Galen, a Roman physician whose writings were treated with the reverence of scripture. To question it would be like questioning gravity. Within the human body, the physician continues, pointing a long, slender finger at a diagram of a man on the chart. These elements manifest as four corresponding humors. From the earth comes black bile, which makes a person melancholic and is cold and dry. From water comes phlegm, which makes one phlegmatic and is cold and wet. From air comes blood, which makes one sanguine and is hot and wet. And from fire comes yellow bile, or choler, which makes one choleric and is hot and dry. He looks at you expectantly, checking to see if you are following his impeccable logic. The health of a person, he explains, depends on these four fluids being in perfect balance. Every illness, from a common cold to the plague, and every condition, including the inability to conceive an heir, is caused by a surplus or deficiency of one or more of these humors. The entire practice of medicine, therefore, is not about fighting germs, a concept that won't exist for centuries, but about rebalancing these internal liquids. It's less like being a doctor and more like being a very, very particular bartender, constantly trying to get the cosmic cocktail inside you mixed just right. Master Alistair now steps forward, taking over the presentation. Through careful observation, Your Majesty, observing your complexion, your temperament, the quality of your sleep, and other vital signs, we have concluded that your system presents with a subtle excess of cold and dry humors. He says cold and dry as if it's a verified laboratory result. In his mind, it is. He has diagnosed you with a surplus of black bile, the humor of melancholy. This explains your pensive moods, your anxieties, your lack of fiery generative success. It's a beautifully self-contained, circular logic. Are you stressed and sad because you don't have an heir? No. You don't have an heir because you are physiologically predisposed to being sad and stressed. The problem isn't external pressure, it's an internal, humoral malfunction. This brings us to a weirdly fascinating bit of historical detail. The physicians had elaborate charts to diagnose these imbalances. They would scrutinize the color and viscosity of your blood after a bloodletting. Of course, the smell and hue of your urine, a practice called uroscopy. And as we've discussed, the state of your stool. A physician might hold a flask of royal urine up to the light with the same focused intensity a jeweler might use to inspect a diamond, divining your entire state of health from its properties. Therefore, Alistair proclaims, his voice resonating with newfound purpose, the course of treatment is clear. We must counteract the coldness and dryness. We must introduce warmth and moisture back into the royal system. We must irrigate the arid ground so that the seed may find fertile purchase. The poetry of his language is almost beautiful, if you ignore the terrifying implications. H.E.S. not just a doctor, H.E.S. a gardener, and you are his prize. But currently underperforming, don't. The historical debate here is a subtle but important one. Were these physicians cynical operators, using fancy jargon to justify whatever treatments they thought might work, or to simply keep their high-paying jobs, or were they utterly sincere in their beliefs? The overwhelming consensus is that most of them were deeply, profoundly sincere. They believed in the four humors with an almost religious faith. They weren't trying to trick you, they were genuinely trying to save your dynasty using the most advanced scientific principles available to them. And in a way, that sincerity makes the whole situation even more dangerous. A charlatan might give up when a cure fails. A true believer will only double down, convinced his methods are sound but the application was perhaps not vigorous enough. You look at the chart, at the interconnected lines of humors, planets, and body parts. It's a comprehensive system that seems to explain everything. It offers order in the face of chaos, a clear diagnosis for your silent panic. For a fleeting moment, you feel a flicker of hope. These men seem so sure. Their confidence so absolute. Their system is logical. It has rules. Maybe they are right. Maybe your body really is just a little out of tune. And maybe, just maybe, they hold the key to returning it. This is how they get you. It's not with threats, but with the seductive promise of a solution, a rational path out of your despair. The logic is flawless, even if the premise is completely, utterly wrong. You are a monarch, a rational ruler in a world governed by divine and natural laws. The four humors theory is presented as just such a law. To accept their diagnosis is to act in accordance with the perceived order of the universe. So you say, breaking the silence, what must be done to restore this warmth and moisture? A thin smile plays on Master Alistair's lips. He knew you would say reason. The first step, Your Majesty, he says, is the most foundational. We must begin by controlling what enters the royal body. We must adjust your diet. The word diet hangs in the air, deceptively simple. You imagine, perhaps, getting up a bit of red meat or drinking less wine. You could not be more wrong. This isn't a diet in the modern sense of counting calories or cutting carbs. This is a complete overhaul of your existence. A micromanaged culinary regimen designed not for pleasure, but for alchemical transformation. Your plate is about to become their new laboratory. The younger physician, the enthusiastic one, steps forward again, unrolling a second, even longer parchment scroll. It's a list, your new menu. And as he begins to read from it, your heart sinks. To counteract the excess of cold and dry humors, he declares, we will, of course, be eliminating all foods that possess these unfortunate qualities. This means, regrettably, no more aged cheeses, as they are exceedingly dry. No beef or venison, for these are melancholic meats, born of the earth. Lentils, cabbage, and all root vegetables that grow in the cold ground are henceforth forbidden. HES just listed half of your favorite foods. A good, strong, aged cheese with a slice of dark bread and a slab of roasted beef is a meal fit for a monarch. No, it's poison. He continues, his voice devoid of any sympathy. Furthermore, we must avoid foods that are overly processed, pickled items, salted fish, and smoked meats. While they may preserve the food, they do so by drying it, introducing a harmful quality into the system. Therefore, these two must be set aside. A quiet sense of panic begins to set in. In an age before refrigeration, processed foods like these are not just delicacies, they are staples. Especially during the long winter months, they are what fill the royal larder. What, in God's name, are you supposed to eat? The physician smiles, as if HES read your mind. But do not despair, Your Majesty. We are not prescribing a fast. We are merely making substitutions. We will be replacing the cold and dry with the hot and wet. Your new diet will be rich in foods that generate the sanguine humor blood. To you, that sounds vaguely vampiric, but you hold your tongue. The finest food for this purpose, he continues, his enthusiasm growing, is chicken and lamb. These are hairy, moist meats. They must be prepared simply poached or lightly roasted, never fried, as the hot oil introduces a choleric or fiery imbalance. The flesh should be served in a warm, wet sauce, perhaps of wine and verjuice, to further enhance its moistening properties. So your future is boiled chicken, day in and day out, but it gets worse. Your bread will be made from the finest, whitest flour, as the coarse brown of darker breads is too earthy and dry. Your drink shall be a young, light wine, moderately watered down, as a strong, aged wine is too hot. Water itself should be taken sparingly, and always boiled first with cinnamon or anise. to add a warming quality. Every single thing that passes your lips is now a medical prescription. There is no room for taste, for preference, for simple enjoyment. A meal is no longer a source of comfort or a social occasion, it's a dose of medicine. Your dining hall has become a hospital ward. Here's a bizarre little tidbit of medieval food science for you. The perceived qualities of a food weren't just based on its taste or texture, but also on where it came from. Fish, living in the cold, wet water, were considered extremely cold and wet. This made them suitable for someone with a hot temperament. But for you, in your cold and dry state, most fish were off the menu. Birds, however, who lived in the era hot and wet element, were seen as beneficial. It was a kind of sympathetic magic on a plate. You are what you eat, quite literally. You want to be more hot and wet, eat things that fly. The historical arguments around this are fascinating. Some historians believe these prescriptive diets were a major form of social control. By dictating what the king or queen ate, physicians and by extension, the court exerted a profound, intimate power over the monarch's daily life. It was a constant, physical reminder of their authority and the monarch's problem. Others argue it was less about power and more about a shared cultural anxiety. In a world with few effective medicines, controlling diet was one of the few proactive things people felt they could do. It was a way of imposing order on a frighteningly unpredictable biology. You sit there, listening to the endless list of prescriptions. Pears are good, but must be cooked. Apples are too cold. Lettuces are acceptable, as they are moist, but must be served with a dressing of olive oil and vinegar to balance their properties. It's an exhausting, nonsensical labyrinth of rules. And the worst part is, you have to follow it, publicly. Your new, boring, boiled chicken and white bread diet will be served to you in the Great Hall, in front of the entire court. Every courtier will see your plate. They will see you dutifully eating your medicinal meal. It is a public advertisement of your condition, a daily, silent announcement that says, the king is unwell. The king is being treated. We are working on the problem. The presentation finally concludes. Master Alistair steps forward once more, his hands clasped behind his back. This regimen will form the foundation of your recovery. Your Majesty, he says, it will gently coax the body back into harmony. It will cleanse the system of its melancholic excess and prepare the ground for what is to come. The phrase hangs in the air with ominous weight. Prepare the ground for what is to come. This is only the beginning. The bland food, the endless rules, the public humiliation of your prescribed meals, this is just the appetizer. The main course of their cure is yet to be served. And you have a terrible feeling it's going to taste a lot worse than boiled chicken. Your life is now ruled by the kitchen bells and the physician's scroll. Days blur into a monotonous parade of poached lamb and waterlogged chicken. The joy of food, one of life's simple, reliable pleasures, has been systematically drained away, replaced by a constant, nagging awareness of your own imbalance. You chew and swallow, not with appetite, but with a grim sense of duty. But the bland diet is, as you suspected, merely the overture. After a few weeks of this culinary purgatory, Master Alistair and his team return. They are pleased. They say, your complexion is less sallow, your pulse more regular. The foundation has been laid. Now it is time to introduce more active interventions. This is when the potions begin. The younger physician, the one with the zealous eyes, arrives at your chamber one evening bearing a small, cork-stoppered vial. The liquid inside is a dark, murky green, with flecks of unid and fightable matter floating in it. It does not look appetizing. Your Majesty, he says, his voice brimming with excitement, we have prepared a tonic to further encourage the moistening of your system. This will invigorate the vital spirits and awaken the generative faculties. He pours a small amount into a silver goblet. The smell hits you first. It's a bitter, earthy aroma, like damp soil and crushed weeds. You eye the concoction warily. What is in it, you ask? Your voice flat. He beams, proud to share his knowledge. The primary ingredient, Your Majesty, is a tincture of Mandragora officinor, the mandrake root. Of course, the mandrake. Even you, who are no herbalist, have heard the legends surrounding this plant. It's the one with a root that famously resembles a human figure. The folklore around it is potent and unsettling. They say it shrieks when pulled from the earth, a sound so terrible it can kill anyone who hears it. Harvesters, so the stories go, would tie a dog to the plant and plug their own ears, letting the poor animal suffer the death cry as it pulled the root from the ground. That's the main ingredient in your new wine tart. The physician hastens to reassure you. The stories are, of course, peasant exaggerations, Your Majesty, but the plant's power is very real. Its man-like shape is a clear sign from God of its purpose. It is a doctrine of signatures. A plant shaped like a man is meant to treat the whole man. It is particularly potent for matters of fertility and virility. This doctrine of signatures was a hugely popular concept. It was the belief that God had marked plants to indicate their use. A plant with heart-shaped leaves was for heart ailments. A liver-shaped herb was for the liver. And a plant with a root that looked vaguely like a little person with dangling bits, well, you can guess what that was for. It was less science and more a kind of cosmic rebus puzzle. So you drank. The taste is even worse than the smell. It's acrid and bitter, and you can feel a strange, tingling numbness spread from your tongue down your throat. You fight the urge to gag, maintaining your royal composure as the physician watches you with hawk-like intensity. You are drinking a potion made from a notoriously toxic plant, steeped in superstition, all because its root has a passing resemblance to a gingerbread man. The mandrake potion is just the beginning. Each day brings a new and equally unpalatable concoction. One day it's a tea brewed from stinging nettles, meant to stimulate the blood. Another day it's a syrup with borage and rosemary, to gladden the heart and drive away melancholy. Each one is presented with the same unshakable confidence, backed by centuries of tradition and the bizarre logic of sympathies and signatures. Here historians face a puzzle separating the purely medicinal from the magical. The line was incredibly blurry. An herb like rosemary might be prescribed because its health properties were believed to counteract a cold humor or medical reason. But it was also used in wedding ceremonies to symbolize fidelity and fertility, a magical or symbolic reason. Did the physician see a difference? It's a subject of ongoing debate. Many scholars now argue that for them, there was no difference. The physical properties and the symbolic meaning of a plant were two sides of the same coin, both part of its God-given essence. They weren't practicing medicine and magic, they were practicing a single, holistic craft where the two were inextricably linked. You, however, are not feeling holistic. You are feeling systematically poisoned. The potions leave a perpetual bad taste in your mouth. Some of them give you stomach cramps, others make you feel lightheaded and strange. You report these symptoms to your physicians, and they nod sagely. Excellent, Your Majesty, Master Alistair says, after you describe a particularly unpleasant night of digestive turmoil. The potion is working. It is purging the bad humors from your system. The body is cleansing itself. Every negative side effect is reinterpreted as a sign of success. There is no outcome that could possibly prove their theory wrong. If you feel better, the cure is working. If you feel worse, the cure is working even harder. It's a closed loop of logic from which there is no escape. You lie in bed at night, the bitter taste of some unholy herbal brew on your tongue, and you stare into the darkness. The grand tapestries on the wall seem to shift in the flickering firelight. The woven heroes look down at you, their expressions no longer mocking, but pitiful. You are the most powerful person in the kingdom, a monarch by divine right, and yet, you are powerless. A passive vessel for the strange and bitter draughts forced on you by men who promise to heal you with weeds and roots, all based on a logic that feels more like a fairy tale than science. The nights are long, and the promise of dawn brings only the certainty of another goblet filled with another dark, magical hope. Just as you're getting accustomed to the grim routine of boiled chicken and bitter potions, a new character makes his grand entrance onto the stage of your recovery. He is not a physician, but his influence is, if anything, even more profound. He is the court astrologer. He writes not with vials and charts of the human body, but with scrolls covered in complex, circular diagrams of the heavens. He smells not of herbs, but of old parchment and the faint, metallic scent of the brass astrolabe he carries with him. He is often a man of genuine mathematical talent, a skilled astronomer capable of predicting eclipses and tracking planetary movements with impressive accuracy. But his primary job is not astronomy, it's astrology. The two were considered sister sciences, inseparable. To track the stars without interpreting their meaning was considered a pointless, merely technical exercise. Master Alistair introduces him with great reverence. Your Majesty, while we have been tending to the microcosm of your body, we must not neglect the macrocosm of the heavens. The celestial spheres exert a constant and powerful influence upon all terrestrial matters, especially those of generation and birth. The astrologer unrolls a magnificent chart, a personalized map of the heavens at the exact moment of your birth, your natal chart. It is a dizzying web of signs, houses, and planetary aspects. Your Majesty's chart is most illuminating. The astrologer says, his voice a dry whisper. He points a bony finger at a symbol. You were born with Saturn ascendant in your first house. Saturn, as you know, is a cold and dry planet. It governs melancholy, restriction, and delays. It's the same diagnosis as the physicians, but written in the stars instead of your humors. The celestial and the biological are in perfect, depressing alignment. According to these men, you were doomed from birth to be a bit of a downer. But he, like the physicians, brings a message of hope, or at least, a message of micromanagement. The influences of the stars are not an inescapable fate, Your Majesty. They are more like celestial weather. One does not command the rain to stop, but one can choose to carry an umbrella and stay indoors. We cannot change the stars, but we can choose the most auspicious moments to act. And so, the next phase of your treatment begins. Your great matter, the vital act of trying to conceive an heir, is no longer a private, spontaneous affair between you and your spouse. It is now a scheduled event, timed with the precision of a military campaign. And the general is this man with his star charts. He consults his tables, his astrolabe, and his ephemerides. He calculates the position of the moon, the influence of Venus, the planet of love and fertility, and the benevolent aspect of Jupiter, the planet of expansion and good fortune. He also carefully tracks the movements of the malevolent planets, Mars and Saturn, ensuring they are not in a position to cast their negative rays upon your endeavors. The result is a bizarre and deeply intrusive timetable. The moon will be waxing in the fertile sign of Taurus 3 nights from now. The astrologer might announce, Venus will be in a favorable trine with Jupiter. This will be a most propitious time. Your Majesties should endeavor to be together between the 2nd and 3rd hour after midnight. Just imagine the pressure. The entire endeavor, already fraught with anxiety, is now burdened with cosmic significance. You and your queen must perform on command, not when you feel affection or desire, but because a man with a pointy hat says the planets are aligned. It is perhaps the least romantic scenario ever devised by humankind. This practice was incredibly common. The famous 16th century physician and astrologer, Nostradamus, was known to give this kind of advice. The belief was that a child conceived under a favorable alignment of stars would be healthier, more successful, and more virtuous. A child conceived at a bad time could be sickly or, heaven forbid, have a rebellious or unfortunate nature. For a royal heir, the stakes were astronomical. Quite literally, you weren't just trying to have a baby, you were trying to have a divinely endorsed, star-blessed successor. The historical debate here revolves around the question of faith versus fatalism. Did people like you see astrology as a tool for empowerment, a way to navigate the treacherous currents of fate, Or did it create a kind of celestial paranoia, where every decision was fraught with cosmic peril and every misfortune was blamed on a bad transit of Mars for many? It was likely both. It offered a sense of control in a chaotic world, but at the cost of living under a constant, invisible web of planetary rules and prohibitions. The nights become a waiting game. You lie in your grand bed, next to your spouse. The silence thick with unspoken pressure. You're both aware of the celestial clock ticking. Is the moon in the right phase? Is Jupiter smiling down upon you? You find yourself glancing out the window at the sky, no longer seeing a beautiful canopy of stars, but a complex, judgmental machine whose gears must align perfectly for you to succeed. The astrologer's influence seeps into every corner of your life. He advises on the best days to hold council, to assign treaties, to go for a hunt. Your life is no longer your own, it's being dictated by the slow, silent dance of celestial bodies millions of miles away. You're eating boiled chicken because your humors are wrong, and you're timing your intimacy based on the position of Venus. Every part of your existence, from the food on your plate to the stars in the sky, has been co-opted into this grand, desperate project, and still, the royal cradle remains empty. The pressure melts, and you know that the solutions are only going to get stranger from here. The diet has been implemented, the potions have been drunk, the stars have been consulted, and yet, nothing. The silence from the royal nursery is deafening, and the faces of your physicians are beginning to show the first subtle cracks in their professional confidence. Master Alistair's brow seems permanently furrowed, and the younger physician's zealous light in his eyes has dimmed to a low flicker of anxiety. When their theories meet the stubborn wall of reality, they don't question the theories. They question the application, the diagnosis. They conclude, remains correct, you are too cold and too dry. But clearly, the passive methods of diet and potions are insufficient. A more direct, vigorous approach is required to alter your fundamental temperature. It's time to literally heat you up. This is when things start to get uncomfortably hands-on. One afternoon, you are instructed to lie down on a table in your private chambers. The physicians enter, not with vials, but with jars of thick, pungent ointments and balms. Your Majesty, Alistair announces, his voice taking on a new, greater tone. To expedite the warming of the system, we must apply heat directly to the body. We have prepared a series of plasters and poultices designed to stimulate the blood and restore vital warmth. A plaster, in this context, is not the simple adhesive strip we think of. It was a thick, sticky concoction spread onto a piece of linen or leather and applied to the skin, and the ingredients were aggressive. The younger physician holds up a jar filled with a dark, gritty paste. This is a mustard plaster, Your Majesty. The heat of the mustard is renowned for its ability to draw out cold humors and move the blood. Before you can protest, they are applying the thick, warm paste to your chest and back. At first, it's just a pleasant warmth, but within minutes, the warmth turns into an intense, burning heat. Your skin prickles and stings, turning an angry red under the plaster. It feels like 1,000 angry wasps are stinging you in perfect unison. You clench your jaw, enduring the discomfort with royal stoicism. This, you are told, is the feeling of the cold being driven from your body. It is the feeling of healing. But they are just getting started. The logic of humoral theory demanded that the treatment be applied to the specific parts of the body associated with generation. This meant that the poultices and plasters were not just applied to your chest or back. They were applied to your lower back, your abdomen, and most uncomfortably, the region of the loins and groin. They are, in essence, trying to jumpstart your fertility by applying the medieval equivalent of a chili pepper poultice to your most sensitive areas. This practice gives us a rather bizarre cold case of medical history. King Henry VII of England, while famous for his 6 wives and his desperate quest for a male heir, less known are the specific treatments he likely endured. His leg was afflicted with painful varicose ulcers, and for years, his physicians treated them with cauterization and an endless series of plasters and poultices. Historians still debate the exact ingredients and effects of these treatments. Some scholars argue that the constant pain, combined with potential absorption of toxic materials like mercury or lead from his medicines, could have contributed to his infamous temper, paranoia, and, ironically, his health problems, which may have impacted his ability to produce a healthy heir in his later years. The treatments for you are not limited to plasters. You are also prescribed a regimen of fermentations. This involves cloths being soaked in a hot infusion of herbs chamomile, rosemary, and other warming plants and then draped over your body. You lie there, swaddled like a newborn, steam rising from your skin, the air thick with the cloying scent of boiled herbs. You are being gently cooked in the name of science. And the physician's logic extends beyond simply adding heat. You are dry, so you must be moistened. This is where the ointments come in. After a session of being heated by plasters, your red, irritated skin is slathered with greasy balms. The base is often aniline wool fat or some other animal grease, mixed with more herbs. This will seal in the warmth and introduce a moistening property to the skin, the physician explains, as he rubs a greasy, smelly unguent all over your torso. You feel less like a king and more like a piece of leather being conditioned. The entire process is a systematic assault on your senses. You are constantly either burning from a mustard plaster, sweltering under hot, wet cloths, or feeling greasy and smelling faintly of a sheep's armpit from the ointments. Your royal chambers, once a symbol of your power and majesty, now smell like a cross between a spice merchant's back room and a stable. And through it all, you must not complain. You must project gratitude. These men are doing everything in their power, using the full extent of their knowledge, to help you. To show pain would be unmanly. To show disgust would be ungrateful. To refuse would be to endanger the kingdom. So you lie there, enduring the stinging, the sweating, and the smelling, a passive participant in the slow, methodical, and deeply uncomfortable process of rebalancing your vital fluids. You are being heated, humidified, unmarinated, and you can only pray that somewhere, deep inside your thoroughly abused body, the desired spark is finally being kindled. The heat treatments leave you feeling tenderized, like a piece of meat that's been marinated for too long. Your skin is perpetually irritated, and your chambers have a permanent, lingering smell of boiled herbs and lanolin. Yet, the royal bed remains fruitless. The physicians, seeing that directly heating your body isn't enough, turn back to their first and favorite tool, your diet. But this time, they're not just focused on the hot and wet qualities of the food. They are now embracing a new, more potent principle, sympathetic magic. It is time for you to eat your way to fertility. The logic is simple, primal, and deeply intuitive. It's a principle you see in cultures all over the world. You are what you eat. Therefore, if you wish to be fertile, you must consume things that are themselves symbols of fertility, virility, and abundant life. The doctrine of signatures, which guided them to the man-shaped mandrake root, is now applied to the entire animal kingdom. The head of the royal kitchens is summoned. He stands before you and the physicians, his white apron immaculate, his face a mask of professional calm, though you can see a flicker of bewilderment in his eyes. Master Alistair begins to dictate the new menu, and it sounds less like a meal plan and more like a Yukekeeper's shopping list. From this day forward, Alistair proclaims, His Majesty's table must be laden with creatures renowned for their prolific nature. We shall begin with the rabbit. The rabbit. Of course, everyone knows rabbits are famous for their rapid and numerous offspring. Therefore, by eating rabbit, you will absorb its procreative essence. The logic is as simple as it is flawed. You picture your future, an endless procession of roasted, stewed, and potted bunnies. But it doesn't stop there. Eggs, the younger physician chimes in, are the very symbol of nascent life, a most potent food. His Majesty should consume them daily, softly boiled, so as to retain their moistness. And so, your breakfast, Once a hearty affair of bread and meat becomes a sad, lonely egg in a cup, which you are expected to eat with the reverence one might afford a holy relic. You stare at the egg, and the egg stares back, a perfect, smooth symbol of everything you are failing to achieve. The list goes on. Fish roe, Alistair continues, is a food of unparalleled potency. A single fish can produce thousands of eggs. This is a clear sign from God of its generative power. We shall procure the finest sturgeon roe available. This is one of the first times a cure sounds remotely appealing. Caviar, a delicacy. But any pleasure is quickly erased by the context. You're not eating it for its rich, salty flavor. You're eating it as a prescription. Each tiny black egg is a tiny weight of expectation. You are literally eating thousands of potential lives in the desperate hope of creating just one. This is where we get some truly weird and wonderful historical recipes. One obscure medieval text suggests a pottage for virility that included sparrow brains. Why sparrows? Because they were seen as lusty, amorous birds, constantly mating. By eating their brains, a man was thought to absorb their lustful energy. It's a concept that historians are still exploring, the intersection of folklore, medicine, and cuisine. Was this a genuine medical prescription? Or was it more of an aphrodisiac? A kind of early, soupy version of a little blue pill, working more on the mind than the body? The line is almost impossible to draw. Your meals become a parade of symbolic foods. You eat clams and oysters, because they are found in the fertile sea and their shape holds a certain anatomical suggestiveness. You eat pigeons and doves, birds associated with Venus, the goddess of love. You eat the tender shoots of asparagus, a vegetable whose shape was seen as overtly phallic and therefore potent. Your plate is a Freudian fever dream of symbolic potency. The queen, your spouse, is not exempt from this. Her diet is also adjusted. She is fed foods thought to make her receptive. This often included quince, a fruit associated with marriage and fertility since ancient Greece, and almonds, another symbol of new life. The two of you sit at the grand dining table, publicly consuming your symbolic meals, a silent, edible prayer for a child. The court watches. They see the rabbit, the eggs, the fish roe being served to the royal table. They understand the symbolism. It is another public declaration of the ongoing project. And for you, it's another layer of pressure. Every bite is a performance. You must chew with vigor. Project an air of confidence, as if you can feel the virile power of the sparrow's brain coursing through your veins. But inside, you just feel absurd. You look at the plate of carefully prepared food in front of you. A piece of roasted rabbit, a spoonful of caviar, a side of steamed asparagus. It's not a meal. It's a collection of superstitions. You are the most powerful man in the kingdom, a leader of armies, a maker of laws, and you are sitting here, trying to solve your dynastic crisis by eating a bunny rabbit, hoping its reproductive luck will somehow rub off on you through digestion. The sheer comical absurdity of it all would be funny if it weren't so deeply, desperately serious. You pick up your fork. You take a bite of the rabbit. It tastes of rosemary and of failure. The symbolic diet has been in effect for weeks, and your palate has grown weary of rabbits and eggs. You suspect the entire kingdom's rabbit population is in a state of quiet panic. But the physicians, seeing no visible results, decide that merely eating the symbols of virility is too subtle. The power needs to be concentrated, distilled into a more potent form. It's time to move on from the flesh of potent animals to their very essence. This is the day the drinking gets weird. Master Alistair arrives with a ceremonial gravity, accompanied by two attendants carrying a heavy, ornate decanter and a single goblet, both made of dark, polished silver. They place them on the table before you. The decanter is filled with a deep, ruby-red liquid that seems to absorb the light of the room. It looks like a rich, heavy wine. Your Majesty, Alistair says, his voice slow and confidential, as if sharing a sacred secret. We have progressed beyond simple sympathetic foods. It is time for a more direct infusion of animal vigor. We have prepared a cordial. He uses the word cordial as if it were a comforting, familiar term. But you've been on this journey long enough to know that their vocabulary and yours have vastly different meanings. His diet was a culinary prison. His potion was a bitter poison. His cordial is unlikely to be a pleasant after-dinner tipple. He pours the dark liquid into the goblet. The aroma is not of grapes, but is heavier, muscier, with an undercurrent of something metallic and wild. What is it this time, you ask? The weariness evident in your voice. The younger physician, his enthusiasm momentarily rekindled by this new and exciting treatment, steps forward. It is a wine fortified with the most potent sources of masculine energy we could procure, Your Majesty. It contains powdered stag antler, for the stag is the king of the forest, proud and virile, and it is infused with a powder made from the dried and ground testicles of a fox. You stare at the goblet. You stare at the physician. He has just told you, with a completely straight face, that he wants you to drink powdered fox testicles. The silence in the room is thick enough to chew. You try to process the logic. A fox is cunning and famously energetic. A stag is a symbol of masculine power. Therefore, consuming the parts of these animals most associated with their masculine identity will transfer that power to you. It is the Yisimbosun, the like-for-like principle, taken to its most literal and unsettling conclusion. This was just a weird medieval fad. This kind of thinking using animal genitalia in medicine was surprisingly widespread and persistent, appearing in various forms from ancient Roman texts to early modern pharmacopoeia. The testes, Alistair explains calmly, sensing your hesitation, are the very seat of the generative faculty. They are where the seed is created. They are, in essence, a concentration of pure, unadulterated masculine heat and spirit. By ingesting this, you are taking that spirit directly into your own body. You look into the dark red wine. You can't see the powder, but you know it's there. You can almost taste it already. A phantom flavor of dust and wildness. This is a new low. You've been heated. You've been herbered. You've eaten your weight in symbolic fertility food. Now you are being asked to drink the very essence of a wild animal's manhood, dissolved in wine. This is a point where historical sources are often frustratingly coy. They might mention a potion of vigor or a remedy to strengthen the loins, but they don't always list the stomach-turning ingredients. The specifics are often found in the more obscure medical texts or formularies of the time. And it's here that historians have to piece together what a monarch like you might have actually been consuming. The debate continues on how common the most extreme ingredients were. Were they a last resort, a Hail Mary pass from a desperate physician, or were they a standard part of the advanced therapeutic arsenal? The evidence suggests they were more common than we'd like to think. You think about refusing. You could just say no. You are the monarch, after all. But then you picture the alternative. The whispers in the court growing louder. The pitying looks from your counselors. The ever-present, crushing weight of your dynastic failure. What is worse, the quiet humiliation of failure, or the acute, disgusting humiliation of drinking this? Courage of the fox in a cup. You pick up the silver goblet. It feels heavy in your hand, weighted with more than just wine. It is a chalice of desperation. You look at the impassive faces of your physicians. To them, this is not bizarre or disgusting. It is the next logical step. It is science. You raise the goblet to your lips. You close your eyes. You drink. The wine is heavy and sweet, but there's a gritty, dusty texture to it that you try your best to ignore. A strange, dummy, musky flavor coats your tongue. It's the taste of the forest floor, of blood, of wildness. You swallow it down, forcing your rebelling stomach to be still. You have drunk the courage of the fox, the vigor of the stag. You have consumed the very seat of their power. You set the empty goblet down on the table with a soft click. The physicians nod, satisfied. Excellent. Your Majesty, Alistair says, take this lightly. It will surely rekindle the vital fire. You just nod, unable to speak. You feel a strange mixture of self-loathing and a bizarre, irrational flicker of hope. Maybe this time, this insane, disgusting, desperate time, it will actually work. After weeks of enduring your own peculiar regimen of diets and drafts, the focus of the medical gaze begins to shift. It is a slow, subtle pivot, but an undeniable one. The physicians, perhaps growing nervous about the continued failure of their treatments on you, or perhaps simply following their systematic logic, turn their attention to the other half of the equation, your wife, the Queen. Up until now, her role in this medical drama has been largely passive. She has endured the same anxieties, the same public scrutiny, the same pressure of the scheduled, star-charted encounters. She has eaten the symbolic quinces and almonds prescribed for her. But her body has remained, for the most part, her own. That is about to change. In the worldview of your physicians, the male provides the seed, which is the active, formative principle, the spark of life. The female, however, provides the soil or the field in which the seed must grow. Her womb is seen as a kind of internal garden plot. If the seed is viable, and they have been working tirelessly, with fox testicles and all, to ensure that it is, and yet no flower blooms, then the logical conclusion is that there must be something wrong with the soil. Master Alistair requests an audience with you, this time with a grave and delicate air. Your Majesty, he begins, choosing his words with extreme care, we have done much to increase the heat and vigor of the royal seed, but for the seed to take root, the field must be receptive. We suspect the Queen's room may be afflicted with an excess of cold and dampness, making it an inhospitable environment. The diagnosis is, as always, framed within the neat, inescapable logic of the four humors. A cold womb was a common diagnosis for infertility in women. The theory was that a womb needed to be warm and welcoming to successfully nurture a conception. A cold, damp, or slippery womb would simply fail to hold on to the seed. Therefore, the course of treatment is obvious. They must warm up the Queen, because her issue is internal. The treatments prescribed for her are far more invasive and, in many ways, more unpleasant than what you have endured. While you were being heated from the outside with plasters, they propose to heat her from the inside out. This is where the practice of therapeutic fumigation comes in. Your wife, the Queen, is led to a private chamber, now repurposed as a treatment room. In the center of the room is a special stelaur chair with a perforated seat, essentially a chair with a large hole in the middle. The Queen is instructed to disrobe and sit on this chair, her long chemise or a heavy blanket draped over her legs to form a tent, trapping the air underneath. Beneath the chair, a brazier of hot coals is placed. The physicians, or, more often, their trusted female assistants, then sprinkle a mixture of aromatic herbs, resins, and spices onto the coals. Frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon, cloves, all considered hot and drying substances. The fragrant smoke rises up through the hole in the seat, enveloping her lower body in a warm, aromatic cloud. She has been perfumed, marinated, and gently cooked by medicinal smoke, all in an attempt to change the very climate of her womb. She must sit there, in this deeply undignified position, for as long as the physicians deem necessary, breathing in the thick, sweet smoke, feeling the strange, invasive warmth spread through her. It's an intimate and deeply uncomfortable procedure, shrouded in a cloud of pseudo-scientific ritual. The choice of ingredients for these fumigations is a subject of much scholarly interest. Some recipes were relatively benign, using pleasant-smelling herbs, but others were more extreme. Some texts recommended burning things like dried cow dung, believing its heat was particularly potent. One of the more bizarre and debated ingredients mentioned in some historical formularies, is the hoof of a horse or mule, which when burned, produces a noxious, acrid smoke thought to be powerfully fumigating. Whether a queen would have been subjected to something so foul is a point of contention, but it highlights the extreme lengths to which these treatments could go. While the queen endures her fumigation, she is also given her own special potions to drink, designed to cleanse and warm her from within. These are often bitter, herbal concoctions, similar to yours but with ingredients specifically associated with female health, like mugwort and penurial herbs that we now know can have powerful effects on the uterine muscles. You see the toll it takes on her. You see the weariness in her eyes after a treatment session. You see the quiet way she flinches when the physicians arrive. Pain new. Shared trauma now binds you together. You are partners not just in a marriage and a monarchy, but in this bizarre, humiliating medical experiment. You lie in bed at night, in the grand, performative bed, and the air is different. It's no longer just thick with your own anxiety. It is now filled with the faint, lingering scent of myrrh and cinnamon from her treatments. You look at your wife, a woman of noble birth, a queen, reduced to this a passive vessel to be smoked, purged, and manipulated by well-meaning men who see her body not as her own, but as a faulty garden that needs aggressive, invasive tending. The desperation has now fully infected both of you. You are two prisoners in a gilded cage, submitting to increasingly strange and invasive procedures, all for the sake of an empty cradle and a secure succession. And the creeping dread in the back of your mind gets stronger if this doesn't work. What on earth will they think of next? The fumigation have failed. The queen's womb, despite being smoked like a fine ham, remains stubbornly unreceptive. The mood in the physician's circle has turned grim. Their confidence, once so absolute, has been eroded by months of failure. The polite, professional deference they show you is now tinged with a palpable desperation. Their reputations, their prestigious squat positions, and in some more volatile kingdoms, even their lives, could be on the line. When logic and gentle persuasion fail, the desperate often turn to more primal forces. The physicians have tried to warm you, to moisten you, to align you with the heavens, and to fill you with the symbolic energy of fertile beasts. Now, they decide, you need a direct infusion of life itself, not symbolic life, not the memory of life in a powder dirt, but raw, vibrant, biological force. It is time to drink blood. Master Alistair approaches you, his face ashen. He has dispensed with the elaborate justifications and philosophical explanations of the past. His voice is low, almost a whisper, as if he is afraid of his own words. Your Majesty, he says, avoiding your gaze, we have been too subtle. The vital spirit is weak. To replenish it, we must turn to its very source, to the blood. The blood is the river of life, the seat of the soul's heat. You feel a cold knot tighten in your stomach. You know where this is going. The next morning, you are not presented with a goblet of wine, but with a simple, steaming ceramic bowl. The contents are a deep, opaque red, almost black. The smell is challenging. It's a rich, metallic, slightly sweet odor that catches in the back of your throat. It is the unmistakable smell of fresh, warm blood. What animal you manage to ask? Your voice hoarse. I rooster, Your Majesty. The younger physician replies, a little too quickly. Thy young, vigorous cockerel, taken at dawn. The rooster is the very emblem of the sun, of virility and fire. Its crow banishes the night. Its blood is filled with this solar, masculine energy. We have prepared it as a strengthening soup. The term soup is a generous one. It's barely cooked blood, perhaps with a few warming spices like cinnamon or ginger thrown in to make it medically acceptable and, one assumes, infinitesimally more palatable. You look at the viscous, steaming liquid. It is life, reduced to its most elemental, liquid form. The practice of drinking blood for health, known as hematophagy, is ancient and widespread. Roman gladiators would sometimes drink the blood of their vanquished foes to absorb their strength. In the 15th century, the philosopher Marsilio Ficino, a hugely influential figure of the Renaissance, seriously advocated for elderly scholars to drink blood drawn from the arm of a healthy young person as a way to rejuvenate themselves. He saw it as a direct transfer of vital spirit. So, while it seems horrific to us, the idea of drinking blood as a supertonic was not some fringe lunacy. It was a concept discussed and even recommended by the era's leading intellectuals. Historians still debate how often this was actually put into practice, especially among the elite. Was Ficino speaking metaphorically, or were people genuinely tapping their servants for a rejuvenating beverage, while direct evidence of a king drinking human blood is scarce and often relegated to the realm of his enemies' propaganda, like the tales of Vlad the Impaler? The consumption of animal blood was almost certainly a real medical practice. A rooster, being a potent symbol and readily available, was a perfect candidate. You pick up the bowl. Your hands are trembling slightly. All your life, you have been taught that you are at the apex of civilization. You are surrounded by art, by learning, by theology. You are a Christian monarch, taught that the blood of Christ is a sacred thing, to be taken symbolically in wine, and now you are being told to drink the literal blood of a farm animal like some pagan chieftain. All in the name of science. You think of the rooster, taken at dawn, you were told. You picture it in the moments before, strutting in the castle courtyard, its feathers shining in the first light, puffing out its chest to greet the morning with a triumphant crow. A creature full of life, of mindless, instinctual vigor, and it was all snuffed out for this bowl of warm, coagulating blood sitting in your hands. The pressure in the room is immense. The physicians are watching you, their faces a mixture of clinical curiosity and desperate hope. This is one of their ultimate therapies. A last-ditch effort to jolt your system back to life. To refuse now would be to throw their most potent weapon back in their faces. It would be the end of the road. You close your eyes. Say a silent prayer, whether to God for forgiveness or to the rooster for its sacrifice. You're not sure, and you raise the bowl to your lips. The liquid is thick, warm, and slick. The taste is overpowering. It's salty, metallic, and primal. It coats your mouth, your tongue, your throat. You swallow, forcing it down, every instinct in your body screaming in rebellion. This is not food. This is not medicine. This feels like a transgression, a violation of some deep, unspoken taboo. You lower the empty bowl, your hands shaking more violently now. You feel nauseous, violated, but you also feel something else. A strange, thumbing warmth spreading through your chest. Is it the rooster's solar energy, or is it just the hot, protein-rich liquid hitting your empty stomach, or is it, perhaps, just the power of suggestion? The desperate hope that this ultimate, disgusting sacrifice might actually mean something. You don't know. You just know that you have crossed a new threshold. You have participated in a ritual that feels older and darker than any Christian rite. And as you sit there, the metallic taste of blood still lingering in your mouth, you realize that there are very few lines left to cross. The rooster blood soup becomes a grim, recurring ritual in the pre-dawn quiet of your chambers. Each time, it is a fresh assault on your senses and your spirit. You feel less like a king undergoing treatment and more like a participant in some dark, pagan rite. And yet, the silence from the Queen's apartment continues. A constant, unspoken testament to your failure. The physicians are now in a state of barely concealed panic. They have thrown their entire conventional arsenal at your problem diet. Herbs, astrology, plasters, sympathetic magic, and even the life force of blood itself. They are running out of ideas. And their once authoritative textbook, the great work of Galen, seems to be failing them. When the textbook runs out, a truly desperate man starts looking for footnotes, for the weird and obscure appendices. This is when they start leafing through the bestiaries, Best diaries were beautifully illustrated manuscripts that described various animals, real and mythical. They weren't just zoology books, they were moral and theological texts. The lion was a symbol of Christ. The slice fox a symbol of the devil. Every animal had a story and a symbolic meaning. And sometimes, tucked within these moral tales, were notes on the animal's medicinal properties, often based on folklore and the writings of ancient authors like Pliny the Elder. It is from one of these obscure corners of knowledge that the next cure is dredged up. Master Alistair, his face looking more tired and drawn than ever, presents the new theory. Your Majesty, he begins, his voice lacking its former booming confidence. We have been focusing on the rooster's solar fire. But perhaps what is needed is not just fire, but relentless stamina, a tireless vigor. He pauses, and the younger physician steps in to deliver the punchline. The fox, Your Majesty, we have already used it, generative essence. But we have overlooked another source of its power. Its lungs. Lungs. You stare at him, uncomrefined. The fox, he explains, a desperate eagerness in his voice, is renowned for its ability to run for hours without tiring. It can lead hounds on a chase from sunrise to sunset. This incredible endurance, this stamina, must reside in its organs of breath, in its lungs. The lungs are the bellows of the body's fire. The logic, as always, is a bizarre tapestry of observation and magical thinking. A fox has great stamina. Stamina is related to breathing. Therefore, the secret to its stamina must be in its lungs. If you consume the lungs, you will absorb the stamina. You are almost too weary to argue. At this point, drinking a potion made of fox lungs sounds almost mundane compared to the rooster blood. At least it will be boiled and filtered and disguised in wine. You simply nod, a gesture of pure, exhausted resignation. And so, a new potion is added to your daily regimen. It's a murky, brownish liquid, served warm in a silver cup. It has a strange, savory, slightly game-wise smell that is deeply unpleasant. You drink it down as quickly as you can, trying not to think about the royal hunters, now tasked not just with procuring symbolic rabbits and potent stags, but with bringing back the specific internal organs of a fox for the royal medicine cabinet. This use of specific, non-generative organs is a fascinating and often grisly side street of historical medicine. While we've heard of eating hearts for courage, the use of other organs was also common. The liver, for instance, was often prescribed for ailments of the liver, following the like cures-like principle. An alchemical text might suggest powdered sheep's brain for headaches. It was a kind of proto-organ transplant by way of digestion. The question that historians still grapple with is the one of efficacy versus placebo. Did these concoctions have any effect at all? It's highly unlikely that fox lungs would have any direct physiological benefit for fertility. But what about the psychological effect if a powerful, authoritative physician tells you, the king, with absolute certainty, that this potion will give you tireless stamina? Does that belief itself have a measurable effect on the power of the placebo? Especially when administered in such a high-stakes, ritualized context, cannot be underestimated. You want to believe it works. Your entire kingdom needs you to believe it works. That showed, desperate belief is a potent drug in its own right. You are now a walking vessel of animal parts. You have consumed the procreative luck of the rabbit, the lust of the sparrow, the virility of the stag, the manhood of the fox, the solar fire of the rooster, and now the endurance of that same fox's lungs. Your body feels less like a temple and more like a bizarre alchemical experiment, a repository for the distilled spirits of an entire forest. You find yourself looking at animals differently. When you see a stag in the royal park, you don't see a majestic creature, you see a potential ingredient. When you hear a fox bark in the night, you wonder about the state of its lungs. The world is no longer just a kingdom to be ruled, it's a pharmacopoeia of potential cures. A living library of parts to be harvested for your singular, desperate purpose. The fox lung potion, like all the others, has no discernible effect. The days turn into weeks, and the queen remains not with child. The atmosphere at court grows thicker, the whispers more audacious. Your physicians now avoid your gaze entirely, their faces masks of failure. The bestiary has failed them, Galen has failed them. The stars have failed them. Their entire system of knowledge is crumbling against the silent, immovable wall of your biology. And when the system fails, people start looking for someone, or something, to blame. The collective confidence of your medical team has evaporated. The brisk, assured manner of Master Alistair has been replaced by a haunted, anxious energy. The younger physician's eager enthusiasm has curdled into a sullen defensiveness. They have tried everything their respected science and tradition could offer. They have tweaked your humors, charted the heavens, and made you consume a menu that would make a vulture squeamish. And still, failure. In the brutal politics of a royal court, prolonged failure is rarely met with sympathy. It is met with suspicion, and for a court physician, the line between being a revered healer and a suspected poisoner or incompetent charlatan is perilously thin. Their very survival now depends on finding a solution. Any solution. This is the point in the journey where the physician's professional anxieties and your dynastic desperation collide to create a perfect storm of terrible ideas. This is their how do the gamblers all in bet. They abandon the last vestiges of caution and start recommending treatments from the fringes of medicine, the kind of stuff even they might have scoffed at a year ago. The first sign of this new, reckless phase comes when they propose a change to your blood drinking habit. The rooster blood, Alistair now argues, while potent, is perhaps not elevated enough for a royal personage. The vital spirit of a mere bird, who shows his voice strained, may be insufficient to kindle the royal flame. We must look to a creature of greater nobility, a creature closer to man in the great chain of being. He doesn't say the word. He doesn't have to. You know what a chia is suggesting. A mental. Something with warm blood. Something intelligent. A sheep. A goat. Or most potent of all, a young deer. The idea of drinking the blood of something so large, so sentient, is a new level of horror. It feels less like medicine and more like a sacrifice. But you are too deep in this now, and you see the wild, desperate look in his eyes. He is no longer just treating you, he is trying to save himself. But the gambler's bet goes far beyond simply upgrading your bloody breakfast. They begin to experiment with a technique that was both revered and feared: alchemy. Not just the folk magic of herbalism, but the high, intellectual art of turning base substances into noble ones, of creating elixirs of life. A new figure might be discreetly brought to court, not a physician in a scholar's robe, but a secretive man who calls himself an adept or a philosopher of nature. He sets up a laboratory in a secluded castle tower, filled with strange glass retorts, bubbling alembics, and a small, fiercely hot furnace. He speaks in a language of symbols and metaphors of the green lion, the red king, and the chemical wedding. He promises not just to balance your humors, but to fundamentally transmute your body's base matter into a golden state of perfect health and virility. His primary tools are metals and minerals. He prepares for you a cordial of gold, a liquid in which a minuscule amount of gold has been dissolved through some obscure alchemical process. Gold, being the perfect, incorruptible metal, was believed to impart its perfection to the body. He also prepares for you medicines containing mercury and antimony. These were powerful, dangerous substances, known to have dramatic effects on the body. Mercury, for example, causes salivation, which was interpreted as a powerful purging of bad humors. Antimony is a violent emetic, causing intense vomiting. You are given these toxic substances in carefully measured, but still deeply hazardous, doses. You endure nights of agonizing cramps, profuse sweating, and violent purges, all of which the alchemist assures you are signs that the impure, corruptible elements are being driven from your body. This is a fascinating and dangerous chapter in the history of medicine. The line between alchemist and physician was often blurry. with many respected doctors dabbling in alchemical preparations. Paracelsus, a famous and revolutionary 16th century physician, was a huge proponent of using chemically prepared medicines based on minerals and metals. He railed against the old Galenic system and advocated for these new, potent chemical cures. The historical debate rages, was Paracelsus a forward-thinking protochemist, paving the way for modern pharmacology, or was he a reckless practitioner who popularized the use of what were essentially poisons? The truth is, he was probably both. Your physicians, in their desperation, are now willing to gamble on this new, more aggressive chemical medicine. Their reasoning is clear: if the gentle herbs didn't work, maybe a dose of something more powerful, something that provokes a violent reaction, will shock your system into working correctly. You are now in the hands of men who are throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. You are drinking the blood of noble beasts. You are ingesting potions containing heavy metals prepared by a secretive mystic in a tower. Each new cure is a bigger gamble than the last. The physicians are betting their careers. The alchemist is betting his mysterious reputation. And you are betting your life, and the future of your kingdom, on these increasingly wild and dangerous rolls of the dice. The whole process has taken on the manic, feverish energy of a high-stakes gambling den. The quiet, scholarly consultations have been replaced by whispered conferences and risky experiments. The air is thick with the smell of sulfur from the alchemist's lab and the metallic tang of blood from your morning bowl. You are at the center of this storm of desperation, a king whose body has become the ultimate prize on the most dangerous gaming table in the kingdom. The alchemist's metallic potions have left you feeling weak and perpetually nauseous. A faint metallic taste always on your tongue. The violent purges have ceased, but so has any remaining shred of hope you might have had in these radical treatments. Your body has been systematically abused, and your spirit is not far behind. The physicians, seeing the damage wrought by their chemical gambles, retreat from the brink of alchemy, chastened and more desperate than ever. They fall back on what they know: medicine derived from organic sources. But they have exhausted the plants and the living animals of their kingdom. So they turn their attention to a source of medicine that is, to our modern sensibilities, perhaps the most unsettling of all. They turn to the dead. One evening, Master Alistair comes to you, not with a goblet or a bowl, but with a small, exquisitely carved ivory box. He opens it with a reverence usually reserved for a saint's relic. Inside is a fine, dark brown powder that smells strangely of bitumen, spice, and dust. "Your Majesty," he says, his voice hushed, "we have acquired a substance of immense power and antiquity, a panacea prized by physicians for centuries. It is called mummia." The word sounds exotic, magical, but you have been at court long enough to know the etymology of things. You know the word is derived from the Persian mum, meaning wax, which was used to describe the bitumen and resins used in ancient embalming. You know exactly what he is offering you. It's powdered mummy. He wants you to eat a dead Egyptian. You look at the brown dust in the box, and you try to comprehend the chain of events that lead it here. You picture a tomb, sealed from a lily on the banks of the Nile. You picture the tomb robbers, breaking in under the cover of darkness, plundering not just gold, but the resin-soaked, preserved bodies of pharaohs, priests, and nobles. You picture these ancient remains being broken up, ground into a powder, and shipped across the Mediterranean, sold for an exorbitant price in the apothecaries of Europe as a cure-all. And now, a pinch of that dust, a fragment of a person who lived and breathed 3,000 years ago, is sitting in a box in your chamber, waiting to be consumed as medicine. The use of mummia as a medicinal substance is one of the most bizarre and ghoulish chapters in medical history. It began with a misunderstanding. Natural bitumen, found seeping from the ground in some parts of the world, was a traditional folk medicine. The substance found coating and preserving Egyptian mummies was mistaken for this same natural bitumen. Therefore, people reasoned, mummy itself must have powerful healing properties. By the 12th century, it had become a standard item in any well-stocked apothecary. It was prescribed for an incredible range of ailments. from headaches and coughs to bruises and tumors. It was considered a powerful coagulant, so it was often used to treat wounds. And, of course, for a problem like yours, it was believed to hold some kind of ancient, preserved life force that could be transferred to the patient. The historical debate here isn't about whether this happened, it absolutely did. For centuries, the debate is about authenticity, as demand for mummies skyrocketed. The supply of genuine ancient Egyptian mummies couldn't keep up. This led to a gruesome counterfeit market. Unscrupulous merchants would take the bodies of recently executed criminals, vagrants, or hospital patients, prepare them by drying them in the sun or smoking them with bitumen, and then pass them off as ancient mumia. So when a king like you took a dose of this powder, there was no telling what or who you were actually eating. Were you consuming a 3,000-year-old priest of Anubis, or a 16th century pickpocket from Alexandria? It was a grim lottery. The physician takes a tiny silver spoon, scoops up a small amount of the brown powder, and mixes it into a cup of wine. The powder dissolves, turning the wine into a cloudy, dark concoction. He offers it to you. This feels different from the animal blood or the fox parts. This feels like a desecration, a violation of the sanctity of the human body, of the peace of the dead. You are being asked to commit a form of ritualistic cannibalism, sanctioned by the highest medical authorities of your time. You think about the person this powder once was. Did they have a family? Did they laugh? Did they have their own hopes and fears? And did they ever, in their wildest dreams, imagine their final resting place would be the digestive tract of a desperate European king? But what choice do you have? You have come this far. You have drunk blood and ingested poison. What is one more horror? The physicians are looking at you, their eyes pleading. This is one of their most precious, most expensive, and most trusted remedies. To refuse it would be to call them fools, to reject the accumulated wisdom of generations. You take the cup. The wine smells of old resin and something else, something indescribably ancient and sad. You drink it down. It has a gritty texture and a flavor of spice, dust, and decay. You have consumed the past. You have eaten a fragment of a lost civilization, a piece of a forgotten person, in the faint, desperate hope that their ancient dust will somehow reawaken the future sleeping in your own blood. You sit in the silence after the physicians have gone, the strange, dusty taste of mummy lingering in your mouth. You have reached a new depth of desperation, a place where the lines between medicine, magic, and monstrosity have blurred into nothing. You have swallowed history itself, and all you feel is empty. The powdered mummy, like every remedy before it, has worked no magic. The weeks since you began taking the ghoulish medicine have been filled with a quiet, creeping despair. The physicians are now really at a loss. They have exhausted the resources of the earth, the sky, the animal kingdom, and even the grave. When man's science has failed so spectacularly, there is only one place left to turn: to God. The tone in the court shifts. The hushed, clinical consultations with physicians are replaced by solemn, intense meetings with your archbishop and the royal chaplains. The problem is no longer framed as a humoral imbalance. It is now discussed in terms of divine disfavor, of a spiritual failing that requires a spiritual remedy. Your private chapel, once a place for quiet Sunday observance, becomes the center of your daily life. Masses are held constantly. The air grows thick with the sweet, heavy scent of incense. The sound of chanting choirs seems to echo endlessly through the stone corridors of the castle. You spend hours on your knees on the cold stone floor, your head bowed, praying until your knees ache and your voice is hoarse. You pray for a sign, for forgiveness, for the miracle that your learned men have failed to provide. But simple prayer, the priests decide, is not enough. An act of profound faith and humility is required. A grand gesture to demonstrate your piety and win back God's favor. You must go on a pilgrimage. This is not a simple trip. A royal pilgrimage is a massive undertaking, a slow-moving procession of knights, servants, courtiers, and clergy, stretching for miles along the muddy roads of your kingdom. It is a public spectacle of the highest order. Every village you pass through, every town you enter, will see you, their monarch, not in the robes of power, but in the simple, humble garb of a penitent pilgrim. It is a calculated act of political theatre and you hope, genuine faith. The destination is carefully chosen a famous shrine, a place known for its miracles, home to the sacred relics of a particularly powerful saint. Perhaps it's the tomb of a martyred apostle, or a fragment of the true cross, or, most likely for your purposes, the shrine of a saint associated with fertility and childbirth, like Saint Anne, the mother of the Virgin Mary, or Saint Gerard Magella. The journey is long and arduous. You travel on horseback, or sometimes even on foot for short, symbolic stretches, to demonstrate your humility. You eat simple food. You sleep in monasteries or modest inns. It is a world away from the insulated luxury of your court. For the first time, you are truly among your people, seeing the harsh reality of their lives. You see the poverty, the faith, and the hardships of the common folk who pray for your success because their own well-being depends on it. Finally, after weeks of travel, you arrive at the shrine. The atmosphere is electric, a mixture of intense religious fervor and a carnival-like excitement. The church is thronged with other pilgrims, people from all walks of life, each carrying their own burden of hope and desperation. There are mothers praying for sick children, farmers praying for a good harvest, and other couples, you notice, praying for the same miracle as you. You are led to the heart of the shrine, to the reliquary itself. It is an ornate box of golden jewels, and inside, behind a crystal window, lies the sacred object, a piece of bone, a lock of hair, a fragment of a garment, a tangible link to a holy person who walked the earth centuries ago. This is the moment of culmination. The archbishop anoints your forehead with holy oil. He chants the prayers. And then, you are permitted to perform the ultimate act of faith, the sacred touch. You reach out your hand and press it against the cold glass of the reliquary. In some cases, a high-ranking pilgrim like yourself might even be allowed to kiss the relic itself. In that moment, 1,000 years of faith and superstition, theology and hope, are channeled through that single point of contact. The belief is that the holiness, the miracle-working power of the saint, can flow from the relic into you. It is a spiritual transfusion. The history of relics is a vast and fascinating field, filled with devotion, commerce, and no small amount of fraud. But trade in relics was a huge business in the Middle Ages. A single important relic could turn a small town church into a major pilgrimage site, bringing in immense wealth and prestige. This, of course, led to a proliferation of fakes. For every genuine relic, there were dozens of counterfeits. Major cathedrals might all claim to have the head of the same saint. John Calvin, the Protestant reformer, once famously quipped that if all the fragments of the true cross scattered across Europe were gathered together, you could build a large ship. So, as you stand there, pressing your hand to the reliquary, what are you actually touching? Historians still debate the provenance of most major relics. Are you touching the bone of a revered saint, or the bone of a random Roman citizen dug up from the catacombs and passed off as a martyr, or is it perhaps even an animal bone, cleverly disguised? In that moment, it doesn't matter. What matters is the power of belief. You close your eyes and pray with a desperation that transcends doubt. You pour all of your hope, all of your fear, all of your kingdom's anxiety into that single, silent plea. You are no longer a king, or a patient, or a scientific experiment. You are just a man, humbled before a power greater than himself, begging for a miracle. You lower your hand. The ritual is complete. A strange sense of peace, or perhaps just exhaustion, settles over you. You have done it. You have made the ultimate appeal to the highest court in the universe. No, all you can do is travel home, and wait, and see if heaven has listened. The pilgrimage is over. You have returned to the castle, and the brief sense of peace you felt at the shrine has dissolved back into the familiar, gnawing anxiety. The grand gesture of faith has, so far, produced no divine results. The court is watching, the priests are praying, and the physicians, having been sidelined during the spiritual phase of your treatment, are now re-emerging, armed with a new synthesis of their old ideas. If diet, potions, astrology, and even direct appeals to God have failed, they reason, it must be because the treatments have been too isolated. The solution is not to try one thing, but to try everything, all at once, in a single, powerful, concentrated ritual. They propose a therapeutic bath. This is not a simple soak in hot water. This will be a full-blown hydrotheological spot treatment, a masterpiece of humoral and astrological theory, combining every principle they have championed so far into one soggy, desperate spectacle. Preparations take days. A massive wooden tub, large enough for you to recline in fully, is brought into a specially prepared chamber. The court astrologer is consulted to determine the most auspicious day and hour for the bath. It must be a time when Venus and Jupiter are strong, and the moon is in a water sign like Cancer or Pisces, to enhance the moistening effect of the treatment. On the appointed day, the chamber is filled with a bizarre and motley crew of specialists. The physicians are there, of course, overseeing the entire operation. The astrologer is present, checking his charts to ensure the celestial window has not closed. Even the alchemist might be there, mumbling about the purifying nature of the baptismal waters. The bath itself is an alchemical suit. The water is heated, but not with a simple fire. It is heated with rocks that have been baked in the furnace until they are glowing red, then dropped into the tub with a theatrical hiss and a great cloud of steam. This is believed to impart a fiery, masculine quality to the water. Then, the ingredients are added. Huge bundles of hot and moist herbs are thrown in: rosemary for warmth, lavender for tranquility, and chamomile to soothe the spirits. The water turns a pale greenish-brown and the air becomes thick with the dizzying herbal shrug. Next comes the symbolic fertility boosters. They might pour in several gallons of milk, typically from a goat or a donkey, animals known for their fertility and rich milk. The water turns a cloudy, opaque white. This is to provide a nurturing, seed-receptive quality to the bath. And then comes the most extreme ingredient, the one that elevates this from a weird spa day to a truly gruesome ritual, to give the bath the ultimate infusion of life force. A final ingredient is added: blood. Not a small bowl, if you will, this time, but buckets of it, likely from a freshly slaughtered sheep or a young bull. The white, milky water is stained a horrifying, swirling pink. You are instructed to disrobe and step into this primordial soup. The water is unpleasantly warm and has a thick, slightly greasy texture from the milk and blood. The smell is a nauseating combination of boiled herbs, warm milk, and the metallic tang of blood. You submerge yourself in the grotesque concoction, your skin prickling. You are in a bath of blood, milk, and herbs, timed to the movement of the planets. This is the grand synthesis of their entire medical philosophy. The heat of the rocks and herbs is balancing your cold humor. The water and milk are correcting your dryness. The astrological timing is ensuring cosmic cooperation. And the blood is infusing you with raw, vital life force. It is the ultimate, all-in-one treatment. The history of medicinal bathing is long and varied. The Romans were famous for their therapeutic baths. In the medieval and Renaissance periods, specific types of baths were prescribed for all sorts of ailments. A bath in a sulphurous spring could be for skin conditions. A bath in a cold river could be to treat a fever by driving the heat out. But the kind of highly ritualized, ingredient-heavy bath you are enduring is something special. It's less about hygiene and more about a magical, full-body immersion in a liquid cure. Historians debate whether the most extreme versions of these baths, particularly those involving large amounts of blood, were common practice or the stuff of legend and horror stories, while detailed recipes for such baths exist in some obscure texts. It's hard to know if they were literal instructions or more like thought experiments in extreme medicine. But for a high-stakes patient like you, desperate monarch, it's plausible that your physicians would be willing to try even the most extreme prescriptions found in the darkest corners of their libraries. You lie in the pink, herbal water, trying to breathe through the steam and the smell. You look at the serious, focused faces of the men surrounding your tub. They are not madmen performing a dark ritual in their minds. They are scientists conducting a crucial experiment, using all the tools at their disposal. They watch your skin for any change in color. They monitor your pulse. They ask you how you feel. How do you feel? You feel degraded. You feel like a piece of meat being bribed. You feel like the punchline to a very long, very sick joke. You have been poked, prodded, purged, and prayed for. You have consumed the flora, fauna, and even the ancestors of the known world, and now you are being pickled in their remains. You close your eyes and sink a little lower in the body, milky water, wishing you could just disappear. The water cools, the herbs wilt, and another expensive, elaborate, and utterly insane remedy comes to its soggy, pathetic end. The blood and milk bath has left you feeling waterlogged and defeated. A film of sticky residue seems to cling to your skin for days. A constant, physical reminder of the grotesque failure. The castle now feels like a prison of bad smells and worse memories. The physicians, once your constant shadows, have become scarce. They scurry away when they see you coming down the hall. Their faces etched with the unmistakable look of men who have run out of road. When a system of knowledge completely collapses, when every rational by their standards and spiritual avenue has been explored and exhausted, the human mind doesn't simply accept defeat. It seeks a new explanation. If the cause of your problem is not natural, and it is not a matter of divine disfavor that can be fixed with prayer, then there is only one terrifying possibility left. The cause must be unnatural. The whispers in the court, which have been a constant, low hum of political speculation, now take on a darker, more sinister tone. The word that starts to be murmured in shadowed corners is witchcraft. The idea takes root slowly, a poisonous weed in the fertile ground of desperation. It might start with one of your more superstitious counselors, or a zealous priest. Your Majesty, they might say, their voice low and conspiratorial. We have tried every earthly and heavenly remedy. Is it not possible that this is not a failure of medicine, but an attack that your royal line has been cursed? I curse. The idea is both terrifying, in a strange way, a profound relief. A curse reframes the entire narrative. You are no longer a man with a failing body, you are the noble victim of a malicious, supernatural assault. The queen is not barren, she is enchanted. Your physicians are not incompetent, they have been battling a foe far beyond the reach of their science. It is an explanation that absolves everyone of failure and provides a new, tangible enemy to fight. The focus of the court shifts from the physician's laboratory to the interrogation chamber. The quest for a cure becomes a hunt for a culprit. Who would do such a thing? The circle of suspicion is wide and poisonous. Could it be a rival noble family, seeking to clear the way for their own claim to the throne, perhaps a courtier you once slighted, taking their revenge in the most insidious way possible? Or maybe it's a foreign power, an enemy kingdom employing dark arts to destabilize your realm from within. But most often, the suspicion falls on the easiest, most vulnerable targets, the women on the fringes of society, the old herbalist who lives in the woods, the one who knows a little too much about plants, the midwife with a reputation for strange birthing charms, the sour-faced colliery maid who was dismissed for theft and was heard muttering threats as she left. Anyone who is different, disliked, or simply unlucky could become a suspect. This paranoia was a real and deadly force in European history. The great witch hunts of the 16th and 17th centuries were fueled by this kind of thinking, and a significant number of witchcraft accusations were related to reproduction. Accused witches were often blamed for causing impotence in men, barrenness in women, miscarriages, and the deaths of infants. The inability to produce an heir was not just a personal tragedy, it could be construed as evidence of a magical crime. One of the most infamous texts on the subject, the Malleus Maleficum, or the Hammer of Witches, published in 1487, has entire sections dedicated to how witches cause impotence and prevent conception. It describes, in lurid detail, how a witch might steal a man's virile member through illusion or even hide it in a bird's nest. While historians debate how widely this specific text was used by actual courts, its ideas reflect a deep-seated cultural anxiety linking magic to reproductive failure. It provided a theological and legal framework for transforming a medical problem into a criminal investigation. And so, the hunt begins. Investigators, often zealous churchmen, are dispatched. They are experts in finding evidence of witchcraft: a strange mole or birthmarker, witch's teeth, a collection of dried herbs, a puppet-like doll. They use methods of persuasion that are brutal and effective: sleep deprivation, intimidation, and physical torment. Under such duress, people confess to anything. They confess to making pacts with the devil, to flying on broomsticks, and, most importantly, to casting a spell of barrenness upon their monarch. A witch is found, perhaps an old, lonely woman who is simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. She is brought to the castle, a scapegoat for years of accumulated frustration and failure. She is paraded before you, a terrified, broken creature, and she confesses her crime. You look at this supposed source of all your misery, this frail old woman, they claim, has bested the kingdom's finest minds, defied the will of God, and single-handedly threatened to bring down your dynasty with a muttered curse and a knotted string. Does it feel like justice, or does it feel like a hollow, desperate farce? Her conviction and subsequent punishment, usually a public and gruesome execution, is a powerful and terrible ritual. It is a purge. It is the court and the kingdom demonstrating that they have found the source of the evil and have cast it out. It is meant to cleanse the realm, to break the curse, and to restore the natural and divine order. After the execution, a strange, expectant quiet falls over the court. The evil has been vanquished. The curse, presumably, is broken. No, surely, things will return to normal. No, surely, an heir will come. You and your queen are left in the silence, haunted by the memory of the cure that required a human sacrifice, waiting once again for a result that may never arrive. The execution of the witch has done nothing but leave a stain on your conscience and a foul atmosphere of fear in the court. The supposed curse was not broken because there was no curse to begin with. The silence from the royal nursery is now a mocking indictment of the entire bloody affair. The kingdom's best physicians, its most pious priests, and its most ruthless investigators have all failed. The situation seems utterly hopeless. And it is into this vacuum of hope that a new kind of figure often steps: the traveling expert, the charismatic stranger with a bold promise. He arrives unannounced, or perhaps summoned by a desperate courtier who heard rumors of his miraculous successes in a distant land. He is not like your local physicians with their university pedigrees and their cautious, tradition-bound methods. He is something else entirely. He might be an Italian with a flair for the dramatic, a mysterious German who claims to have studied in the Orient, or a smooth-talking Arab physician railing clouds of exoticist. He is a master of self-promotion and personal branding. He doesn't wear the somber, dark robes of your court doctors. He might be dressed in silks, with rings on his fingers and a confident, almost arrogant air about him. He speaks with a captivating fluency, peppering his speech with foreign phrases and references to obscure, ancient texts that no one at your court has ever heard of. He dismisses your local physicians with a wave of his hand. Gullen hypocrites, he might say with a contemptuous laugh. My dear Majesty, their knowledge is like a flickering candle in the glorious sun of true wisdom. They have been treating your shadow, not your substance. Their methods are for peasants and milkmaids, not for the sacred body of a monarch. He is a brilliant psychologist. He understands that, after years of failure, you are desperate for a new narrative. He provides one. He tells you that your problem is not a simple humoral imbalance or a common curse. It is a unique, complex, and noble affliction, one that only a man of his rare and sophisticated learning can possibly comprehend. He makes your failure sound special. He presents his credentials, which are always impressive and completely unverifiable. He has studied at the feet of mystical masters in Persia. He has learned the secrets of the pharaohs and the tombs of Egypt. He has mastered the hidden arts of the Jewish Kabbalah. He is, in short, a one-man United Nations of esoteric knowledge. This character is a recurring figure in the history of desperate royals. Think of the influence of men like John Dee on Queen Elizabeth I, or Kagli Sotro on the French court, or most famously, Rasputin on the Russian Romanovs. These figures often gained their power by promising to solve an intractable problem, be it political advice, alchemical gold, or in the case of Rasputin, healing or sick air. They thrived in an atmosphere of crisis and desperation, offering a seductive alternative to the failed establishment. The new expert examines you, but not in the way your old physicians did. He doesn't just check your pulse and your urine. He might gaze deeply into your eyes, claiming to see the state of your soul. He might ask you to describe your dreams. He might perform complex numerological calculations based on your name and birth date. He makes the process feel deeply personal, mystical, and profound. And his proposed cure is, of course, unlike anything you have tried before. It is usually a combination of a secret, proprietary potion and a series of elaborate rituals. The potion is the key. It is his secret weapon, the product of his unique genius. This is not a simple herbal tonic. Your Majesty, he'll explain, holding up a vial of brightly colored or strangely glowing liquid. This is an elixir. It contains quintessence zest distilled under the light of a full moon. Tinctures of rare orchids found only on a single mountain in Cathay. And its most precious ingredient, a single drop of the prima materia, the first matter of creation itself. The ingredients are always exotic, unverifiable, and incredibly expensive. This is a crucial part of the performance. The customs of the cure reinforces its value and power. He might demand rare gems to be ground into the potion, or a specific type of pearl that has been dissolved in vinegar. The cost is not just monetary, it is a demonstration of your commitment. You are not just buying a cure, you are investing in a miracle. Historians are still piecing together what might have been in these elixirs. Some were likely harmless concoctions of herbs and wine, their power residing solely in the placebo effect. Others could have contained active, and potentially dangerous, ingredient stimulants like ephedra, hallucinogens from certain mushrooms, or opiates to induce a sense of well-being and euphoria. The expert was often a skilled practical chemist, able to create potions that had a noticeable, if not curative, effect. You, caught in the grip of his charisma and your own desperation, agree to his terms. You pay the exorbitant price. You dismiss your old, familiar physicians, who watch from the sidelines with a mixture of resentment and fear. You place your trust, and the future of your dynasty, in the hands of this dazzling, mysterious stranger. He gives you the first dose of his elixir. It tastes strange, perhaps slightly sweet, and you feel a warming sensation spread through your body. A lightheadedness that you might mistake for returning vigor. For the first time in a long time, you feel a genuine flicker of hope. This man is different. His methods are new. His confidence is absolute. Surely, this time, this expensive, exotic, and mysterious time must be the one that works. The mysterious elixir of the foreign expert has become your new daily ritual. It does, indeed, make you feel different, a little warmer, a little more energetic, a little detached from the crushing weight of your anxiety. Whether this is the magic of the prima materia or simply the effect of a well-mixed cocktail of stimulants and opiates, it's impossible to say, but the expert assures you that this is just the preparation for his true masterstroke. The elixir, he explains, has prepared your body. It has purified your internal essences and made you receptive to the final, grand procedure. A private cure is not enough for a public problem of this magnitude. What is needed, he declares, is a public ritual of immense power and expense. A spectacle so profound that it will not only realign your physical body, but will also compel the cosmic forces and impress upon your people the certainty of your success. This is the final, most desperate gamble, a theatrical extravaganza of magical thinking. The planning for the ritual takes weeks and involves a significant portion of the royal treasury. The expert's instructions are precise, elaborate, and fantastically expensive. He demands the construction of a special pavilion in the main castle courtyard. The dimensions must be perfect, aligned with numerological principles and oriented to the cardinal points. The materials must be symbolic: the wood from a lightning-struck oak tree, silks of a specific celestial blue, and threads of pure gold for the embroidery. At the center of this pavilion, a ceremonial bed is to be placed, not your gloomy, oppressive poster from the bedchamber, but a new one, built for this single occasion. The bedposts are to be carved from cedar wood, a symbol of incorporatedly. The mattress is to be stuffed not with humble straw or wool, but with a mixture of swan feathers, for grace, and the down of doves, for love and fidelity. The ritual is to take place on a date selected by the expert for its supreme astrological significance, a rare conjunction of planets, a solar eclipse, or the peak of a meteor shower. It is to be a public event, but a carefully controlled one. The common folk will be kept outside the castle walls, but the entire court, every last duke, baron, countess, and courtier is required to attend. They will be the witnesses, the amplifiers of the ritual's energy. On the appointed night, the castle is ablaze with torches. The court assembles in the courtyard. Their faces a mixture of awe, skepticism, and morbid curiosity. The expert, dressed in his most magnificent robes, stands before the pavilion, his voice ringing out in the torchlight. He begins a long, hypnotic chant in a language no one understands. He burns rare, expensive incenses that fill the air with a thick, cloying smoke. He calls upon the spirits of the air, the fire, the water, and the earth. He invokes the names of ancient, forgotten gods and angels. Then, at the height of the ceremony, you and the queen are led into the pavilion. You are dressed in special ceremonial robes of pure white linen. You are instructed to lie upon the ceremonial bed. The expert stands over you, holding a talisman, perhaps a large, flawless crystal or a meteorite fragment which he claims is a focal point for the celestial energies. He anoints your foreheads with a fragrant, oily substance, which he calls the consecrating dew. Then, he draws the silk curtains of the pavilion, enclosing you in the small, sacred space. The court outside falls silent, waiting. You are now alone with your spouse, lying on a fantastically expensive bed, in a purpose-built tent, in the middle of your courtyard, surrounded by your entire court. You are all, presumably, thinking about what you are about to do. The pressure, the sheer, unadulterated, cosmic-level awkwardness is unbearable. This is the culmination of everything: the diets, the potions, the blood drinking, the witch hunting, all leading to this moment of performative, ritualized intimacy. This sort of grand, quasi-magical public ritual is something historians often encounter in descriptions of court life. While the specifics might be exaggerated by chroniclers, the essence is real. Rulers have always used ceremony and spectacle to project power and influence events. A royal wedding was not just a marriage, it was a public performance of alliance and continuity. A coronation was a sacred transformation of a person into a monarch. It's plausible that a desperate ruler, guided by a charismatic charlatan, would extend this love of spectacle to the most desperate problem of all. The line between a state ceremony and a magical ritual could become very, very thin. You lie there in the darkness of the pavilion. The scent of the strange anointing oil thick in the air. You can hear the shuffling and coughing of the assembled court just beyond the thin silk walls. You look at your spouse, and she looks at you. In her eyes, You see the same reflection of your own feelings: exhaustion, absurdity, and a profound, bone-deep sadness. This is the final, insane act of a years-long tragedy. It is an act of pure, theatrical desperation, a prayer shouted at an empty sky, staged for an audience of gossips and rivals. You have spent a fortune, built a temple, and summoned the cosmos, all to fix something that may never have been broken, or may be irrevocably broken in a way no amount of magic or medicine can ever mend. The ritual is a sham, the elixir a fraud, and the expert a magnificent, predatory artist of hope. And as you lie there, waiting for a miracle that will not come, you feel the last flicker of hope finally, truly, die out. The grand ritual in the courtyard is now a week in the past. The silken pavilion has been dismantled, the ceremonial bed stored away in some dusty royal storeroom, and the charismatic foreign expert, having collected the final, astronomical installment of his fee, has vanished as mysteriously as he arrived. He is likely already on his way to another kingdom, another desperate court, ready to spin his tales and sell his expensive, non-existent miracles anew. You are left in the ruinous quiet of his wake, and for the first time, you are forced to take a true inventory of the damage. The most obvious cost has been to your treasury. The endless prescriptions, the rare ingredients, the powdered mummy, the pilgrimage, and most of all, the theatrical sham of the final ritual have bled your kingdom's coffers dry. Funds that could have been used to build roads, pay soldiers, or feed the hungry have been spent on to feather mattresses and drops of prima materia. Your financial advisors present you with the grim figures, their faces carefully neutral, but you see the accusation in their eyes. You have traded your kingdom's security for a charlatan's fantasy. But the deeper cost is not measured in gold, it is measured in your own body. Years of this relentless treatment have left you physically shattered. You are, in every measurable way, in far worse health than when you started. The bizarre and unbalanced diets have left you with chronic digestive issues and nutrient deficiencies. The herbal potions, many of which contain toxic or semi-toxic parts, have taken a toll on your liver and kidneys. The alchemical remedies, the drinks laced with mercury and antimony, have done the most insidious damage. You suffer from a persistent tremor in your hands. Your teeth are loose in your gums, and you are plagued by bouts of irritability and paranoia that are not just reactions to your stress, but classic symptoms of low-level heavy metal poisoning. Your physicians, the original ones who started you on this journey, now look at you with a mixture of guilt and fear. They see the wreck their cures have made of you. They set out to rebalance your humors, and instead they have systematically poisoned you. You are a walking, breathing testament to the catastrophic failure of their entire medical worldview. The physical decay is mirrored by a mental and spiritual exhaustion so profound it feels like a physical weight. Your mind, once sharp and decisive, is now clouded by a constant, low-grade depression. The years of anxiety, of hope raised and dashed, of enduring humiliating and disgusting procedures, have hollowed you out. You feel ancient, brittle, and profoundly tired. The melancholy the physicians first diagnosed in you was a fiction they used to explain your infertility now. It is a grim, self-fulfilled prophecy. They have, through their very attempts to cure it, created the very condition they describe. This downward spiral of health is a tragically common story for many historical figures who underwent intensive medical treatments. We often see them in portraits, aging dramatically over a short period. Their faces growing puffy, their eyes dull. Historians debate the specific causes. Was it the disease or the cure in many cases? Like yours, the distinction is meaningless. The treatments became a disease in their own right. The ongoing debate about the health of figures like King George I of Great Britain touches on this, while he likely had a genuine underlying illness. The aggressive treatments of his era, which included blistering agents on domestics, almost certainly exacerbated his suffering and his periods of madness. You look at your reflection in the polished silver mirror, and you barely recognize the person staring back. The vibrant, confident monarch of a few years ago is gone, replaced by this pale, haunted figure with dark circles under his eyes and a perpetually worried expression. Your body, which was supposed to be the glorious vessel of a divinely appointed royal line, feels like a ruin, a battlefield where dozens of insane theories have waged war, leaving nothing but devastation behind. You are a king without an heir, a ruler with a depleted treasury, and a man with a broken body and a weary soul. The quest to secure your dynasty has paradoxically destroyed the very things you needed to lead it: your health, your wealth, and your spirit. The cures have been infinitely more destructive than the original problem. You have been stripped of everything but your title, and as you sit alone in your grand, silent chamber, you begin to realize that the title itself is becoming increasingly fragile. The hollowing out of your health and spirit is no longer a private suffering. It has become a visible, political fact, and the walls are beginning to circle. For years, the problem of the succession was a theoretical crisis, a future storm on the horizon. Now, the storm has arrived, and your own physical decline is the dark cloud that precedes it. Your authority, which once seemed as solid and eternal as the stone walls of your castle, now feels terrifyingly fragile. Power in your world is not an abstract concept, it is projected through physical presence. A monarch is supposed to be a figure of vigor, of potency. You are supposed to sit straight on your throne during long council meetings, to lead the hunt on the back of a spirited charger, to be a visible symbol of the kingdom's strength. But you can no longer play the part. The tremor in your hands makes it difficult to sign documents with a steady flourish. The chronic fatigue makes it an ordeal to sit through hours of petitions and debates. You cancel public appearances. You delegate more and more authority to your counselors. You, the center of the kingdom's gravity, are becoming a ghost in your own court. And the court notices everything. The whispers are no longer just about the empty cradle, they are about the empty throne, the ambitious nobles, your cousins and brothers-in-law who have been patiently waiting in the wings, are no longer content to wait. Their maneuvering becomes more open, more audacious. You see it in the council chamber. A powerful duke, one with a distant but plausible claim to the throne, begins to speak more forcefully. He proposes new laws. He questions your long-standing policies. He gathers a faction of younger, dissatisfied nobles around him. He doesn't challenge you directly, of course. The language is always one of perfect loyalty. To ease the burden on our beloved, ailing monarch, you might say, while effectively seizing control of a K committee. Every word of concern for your health is a thinly veiled assertion of his own strength. The alliances at court, when stable, begin to shift. Families who have been loyal to your house for generations start hedging their bets. You see them having quiet dinners with the Duke's faction. Their daughters are suddenly being proposed for marriage to the Duke's sons. These are not acts of treason, not yet. They are careful, political calculations. People are preparing for a future without you, or at least, without a direct heir from you. They are choosing sides for the civil war they all see coming. This is the grim reality of a succession crisis, a key driver of conflict throughout history. The Wars of the Roses in England, the War of the Spanish Succession, these devastating conflicts were born from exactly this situation: a contested or unclear line of inheritance. Your personal, biological problem has become a national security threat, threatening to plunge the entire kingdom into bloodshed. Even your relationship with the Queen, your partner in this long medical tragedy, becomes strained by the political pressure. For an ambassadors, seeing her failure to produce an heir and your declining health might start suggesting that you set her aside. A new wife, they'll argue, a young princess from their own country, could solve all your problems. It would bring a fresh alliance and a fresh chance for a child. The proposal is framed as pure politics, a regrettable but necessary move for the good of the kingdom. Your wife, who has endured fumigation, and potions, and public humiliation for your shared cause, is now being discussed as a political liability, a contract that has failed to deliver and should be voided. The historical debate here is a poignant one: how many queens were cast aside for barrenness, when the real reason was a shift in political winds. And Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon, Henry VII's first two wives, are the most famous examples. Their failure to produce a male heir was the public reason for their downfall, but it was inextricably linked with Henry's political ambitions, his desire for a new alliance, and his break with the Roman Catholic Church. The Queen's womb was the battlefield upon which the great political and religious struggles of the age were fought. You feel yourself becoming isolated, a king in name only. The machinery of government, which you once commanded, now seems to be running on its own, powered by the ambitions of other men. You are a prisoner in your own palace, weakened by the very cures meant to make you strong, watching as the power you were born to wield slips through your trembling fingers. The final, crushing irony begins to dawn on you, in your desperate, all-consuming quest to secure the future of your dynasty. You have completely destabilized its present. Your focus on the cradle has left the throne vulnerable. You were so obsessed with the biological root of your power that you neglected the political branches, and now they are cracking under the strain. The kingdom is teetering on the edge of chaos, not because you don't have a son, but because the desperate, years-long search for one has destroyed you. There is a moment, after the political maneuvering has become obvious and your physical decline undeniable, when a profound and unfamiliar quiet descends upon you. It's not the expectant quiet that followed each new treatment, but a quiet of resignation, of deep, hollow emptiness. The parade of physicians, priests, astrologers, and charlatans has finally ended. No one is bringing you any more cures. No one is offering any more hope. The project is over. It is in this silence, sitting alone in your chamber as the late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the tapestries, that you finally have a moment for genuine reflection. The noise has stopped. The desperate, forward-lurching momentum of the quest has ceased, and you are left alone with the wreckage. For the first time, you allow yourself to truly question everything, not with the fleeting doubt of a man in pain, but with the cold, clear-eyed perspective of someone who has nothing left to lose. You think back to the beginning, to those first physicians with their supreme, unshakable confidence. You remember their charts, their impeccable logic of the four humors, hot and dry, cold and wet. It all seemed so scientific, so rational, an elegant system that promised to explain the entire universe and your place within it. You clung to that system because it offered order in the face of your personal chaos. It gave you a set of rules to follow, a path to walk. Now you see it for what it was: a fiction, a grand, elaborate, and internally consistent story that had no more connection to reality than a fairy tale. It was a language invented to describe a reality its speakers did not understand. You were trying to fix a complex clockwork mechanism by chanting spells at it and adjusting the humidity in the room. You remember the sympathetic magic of the rabbit in the fish roe. You recall the earnestness with which your physicians explained that by eating a prolific creature, you would absorb its fertility. The logic felt primal, intuitive. But now, in the silence, you see the breathtaking absurdity of it. You didn't absorb the rabbit's procreative power. You just ate a rabbit. The symbolic meaning was entirely in your own head. A story you told yourself because the alternative, that it was all just random, meaningless biology, was too terrifying to confront. You reflect on the astrologer with his celestial timetables. He wasn't a fool, he was a brilliant mathematician. His calculations of planetary positions were likely flawless. The flaw was in the premise, the belief that the transit of Venus, a distant ball of rock and gas, had any bearing on the intimate processes of your body. You outsourced your own life, your own desires, to a celestial schedule, sacrificing your humanity on the altar of a cosmic clock that wasn't even listening. This moment of profound disillusionment is a turning point that many historians of science find fascinating. When does an established paradigm like the humoral theory finally break? It doesn't usually happen because of a single definitive experiment. It happens slowly, through the accumulation of failures, through a growing sense of dissatisfaction, until a figure like you, a patient, finally stops and says, "This is not working. You are, in your own small, tragic way, living through the death of a worldview. The great scientific revolution that is a few centuries in your future will be built on the quiet, accumulated despair of millions of people who, like you, eventually realized the old answers were no longer sufficient. You even reconsider the witch. You remember her terrified face, her broken confession. The court needed Ellen, a tangible source for an intangible problem, and she was the sacrifice they chose. You allowed it to happen because it was easier to believe in a malevolent curse than in a neutral, indifferent biology. Her death served no purpose but to momentarily soothe the anxieties of a court that could not accept its own powerlessness. The memory of it is a sour, shameful taste in your mouth. And the foreign expert, the charismatic charlatan, he was the most brilliant and cruelest of them all. He didn't sell you medicine, he sold you a story about yourself. He sold you the idea that you were special, that your problem was grand and mysterious, and that he alone held the key. He was a master storyteller, and you were his most desperate and lucrative audience. Lying on your bed, you feel a strange sense of clarity. The world, which for years has been presented to you as a complex web of secret sympathies, celestial influences, and humoral balances, now seems both simpler and more terrifying. It is a world not of hidden meanings, but of stark, indifferent facts. Some bodies produce children, some do not, and nobody, not the wisest physician, nor the most pious priest, nor the most cunning charlatan really knows why. You have been the subject of a grand, multi-act play, and every actor was convinced of his own script. But it was all just a performance to hold back the terrifying silence of not knowing. The silence is here now. It fills the room, and in it, for the first time, you feel a flicker not of hope, but of a bitter, liberating peace. The quest is over. The stories have all been told. There is nothing left to do but face the quiet, unadorned truth. The years that follow your moment of quiet disillusionment are not easy, but they are different. The frantic, desperate energy is gone, replaced by a slow, melancholic rhythm of managing your decline in the kingdom's precarious stability. You have accepted your fate. There will be no miracle. The succession will be a problem for your counselors and your cousins to fight over when you are gone. You focus on what you can control, shoring up alliances, writing your will, trying to put the kingdom's affairs in some semblance of order to mitigate the chaos you know is coming. Your days are quiet, filled with paperwork and the dull ache of your failing health. The Queen, your long-suffering partner in this tragedy, has become your only true confidant. The shared trauma has forged a bond of quiet, sad affection that is deeper than any youthful passion. And then, one day, the impossible happens. It starts not with a grand announcement, but with a whispered rumor from the Queen's ladies in waiting. A rumor so familiar, so often hoped for and so often proven false, that you dismiss it out of hand. The Queen has missed her anti-courses. You've been down this road before. It has always been a false alarm, a cruel trick of the body, or a symptom of the stress and strange diet she has endured. You guard your heart against the poison of hope. You tell the Queen to be cautious, to wait. But another month passes, and another. The physicians, the old, humbled ones who remain at court, are summoned. They are no longer the confident pronouncers of truth. They are hesitant, fearful of giving you another false hope. Their examination is discreet, their language cautious, but their conclusion, delivered with wide, disbelieving eyes, is unavoidable. The Queen is with child. The news ripples through the court like a seismic shockwave. After all the years of striving, all the disgusting potions, the prayers, the rituals, the sacrifices, the despair, now when all hope was abandoned, when you had finally accepted failure, it makes no sense. The court erupts. The faction of the ambitious Duke, which had been so bold, so confident, suddenly falters. Their path to the throne, which seemed so clear, is now blocked by this impossible, improbable development. Your old allies, who were beginning to drift away, flocked back to your side, their loyalty miraculously restored. The entire political landscape of the kingdom is overturned in a single afternoon. You feel a dizzying, disorienting joy, so intense it's almost painful. But underneath it is a profound, nagging question that echoes the one you asked yourself in your moment of disillusionment. Why? Was it one of the treatments? Working on a long delay? Was it the rooster blood, the powdered mummy, the celestial alignment of that final, absurd ritual? Did the witch's death finally break a curse after all, or was it the pilgrimage, a miracle granted by God on his own time? Not yours, as a test of your faith. Every faction at court immediately seizes on the narrative that suits them best. The priests declare it a miracle, a clear sign of God's favor restored. The physicians, regaining a sliver of their old confidence, might cautiously suggest that their final purges, by cleansing the body of impediments, finally allowed nature to take its course. The common folk might whisper that it was the new, simple diet of plain food and clean water, which you adopted after abandoning all treatments, that did the trick. The historical truth, which is often the most frustrating and least satisfying answer, is that we will never know. This is the ultimate black box of history. Sometimes, after years of trying, a couple simply conceives. It might be a change in stress levels, a random alignment of biological factors, or pure, dumb luck. The history of royal succession is filled with these miracle babies, born after years of apparent infertility, often to older parents who had given up all hope. The birth of Louis IV of France is a prime example. His parents, Louis XVI and Anne of Austria, were married for 23 years before he was born, leading to his nickname, Louis Dudon, Louis the God-given. Was it a miracle, or just a statistical anomaly? History doesn't give us the answer. You stand on the balcony of the castle, the queen beside you, her hand resting on her gently swelling abdomen. You look out over the cheering crowds who have gathered to celebrate the news. They see a miracle. They see the hand of God. They see the promise of a secure future, a healthy new prince. You see a joke, a grand, cosmic joke played by a capricious, indifferent fate. You endured hell. You poisoned your body, bankrupted your kingdom, and stained your soul. You tried everything man and God could devise, and nothing worked. Then, when you did nothing, when you finally surrendered, destiny, or biology, or simple chance, shrugged and handed you the prize you had given up on. There is no lesson, there is no moral. The universe has not rewarded your piety or punished your hubris. It has simply done what it was going to do, completely oblivious to your frantic, tragic, and utterly pointless struggle. The relief you feel is immense, but it is forever tangled with the bitter, profound irony of it all. You have your heir. Your dynasty is safe. You have won the game. You just had to wait until you had finally stopped playing. The months of the Queen's pregnancy are the most peaceful your kingdom has known in years. The political scheming subsides, replaced by a collective, anxious watchfulness. The health of the Queen and the child she carries become the singular focus of the entire realm. The physicians, humbled and cautious now, prescribe nothing more radical than fresh air, gentle walks, and a sensible diet. The age of extreme medicine is over. The birth itself is a moment of supreme national drama, while the Queen labors in her chambers, attended by midwives and her ladies. You wait outside with your counselors, the silence punctuated by muffled cries and tense whispers. The entire castle holds its breath. And then, a cry, not one of pain, but the thin, shout wail of a newborn. A moment later, the door opens. A midwife, her face beaming with joy and relief, bows and makes the announcement. It is a son, healthy and strong. The castle explodes in celebration. The bells of every church in the capital begin to ring, a joyous, chaotic symphony that spreads the news to the surrounding countryside. Cannons are fired from the castle ramparts. Wine flows freely in the streets. For a day, The entire kingdom is united in a single, ecstatic celebration. You have an heir. The future is secure. You are finally allowed to enter the chamber. You see the queen, exhausted but radiant, lying in the great bed, and in a cradle beside her, wrapped in the finest linen, is your son. He is small, red-faced, and utterly perfect. You reach down and touch his tiny hand, and his fingers instinctively curl around your own. In that moment, the years of pain, humiliation, and despair seem to melt away. A distant, nightmarish memory, the reality of this tiny, breathing child is all that matters. Years pass. You watch your son grow from an infant to a boy, then from a boy to a young man. He is everything you could have hoped for: bright, strong, and healthy. You instruct him in the arts of kingship, in history, in statecraft. You see in him the future you fought so desperately to secure. Your own health never fully recovers from the abuse of the cures, and you become a more withdrawn, contemplative monarch in your later years. But you are content. You have fulfilled your primary duty. One day, years later, you are an old man, walking with your son, now a young prince, through a dusty, forgotten storeroom in the castle. Your son, curious and energetic, pulls the canvas off a strange, ornate piece of furniture. It is the ceremonial bed from the great ritual. Its carved cedar posts covered in cobwebs. Its dove feather mattress flattened lifeless. "What is this, father?" he asks, running a hand over the dusty sill. You stop and look at the bed, and for a moment, the memories come rushing back with a vividness that steals your breath. You can almost smell the cloying incense, hear the charlatan's hypnotic chant, feel the crushing weight of the quartz expectation. You remember the potions, the plasters, the pain, the despair. You remember the taste of blood and powdered mummy. An entire universe of madness and desperation is contained in that one ridiculous, theatrical piece of furniture. You look at your son. He is the living, breathing proof that the quest, in the end, was successful. He is the result. But you, with the long, bitter perspective of age, know the truth. He is not the result of any of it. He is the result of a biological lottery, a happy accident that occurred in spite of, not because of, your efforts. How do you explain this to him? How do you explain the sheer, unscientific madness that his parents endured for his sake? How do you explain that his very existence is a testament to both the profound depths of human desperation and the astounding resilience of hope in the face of an indifferent universe? This is the final, quiet reflection as we look back from our modern vantage point. We see the absurdity of the fox-lung potions and the horror of the mummy. We can laugh at the pomposity of the physicians with their humor charts and the astrologers with their celestial timetables. It is easy to feel smug in our scientific certainty. But the people in this story were not stupid. They were intelligent, rational people, working within the framework of knowledge they possessed. Their desperate, often grotesque, search for a cure was driven by the same fundamental human impulses that drive us today: the desire for a family, the fear of chaos, the need to find order and meaning in a world that often seems to have neither. Their story is a powerful reminder that the line between science and superstition is often blurry, and that even the most advanced knowledge of an era can seem like barbaric madness to the next. The history of medicine is a history of brilliant insights, but also of spectacular, and sometimes fatal, mistakes. You look away from the dusty old bed and back at your son, your heir, the future of your kingdom. It's just an old piece of furniture, you say, your voice soft, from a long time ago. It doesn't matter. You put your arm around his shoulder, and together, you walk out of the storeroom, leaving the ghosts of the past to their silent, dusty sleep. And so, our story comes to a close. The torchlight on the castle walls begins to soften, the sharp edges of memory blurring into the gentle fabric of a tale that has been told. The frantic energy of the quest, the bitter taste of the potions, the weight of the crown, all of it begins to fade, like ripples on a quiet pond, spreading outwards. growing fainter until the surface is still once more. Feel the weight of those ancient worries lift from your own shoulders. You are not in that cold stone castle. You are here, now, safe in the quiet of your own space. Let the rhythmic cadence of the story you've just heard become a soft, gentle rhythm for your breathing. Inhale the calm of the present moment, and exhale the distant echoes of the past. Imagine yourself drifting away from that old world, floating up above the castle walls, seeing the entire kingdom spread out below like a tapestry woven in moonlight. The great dramas and the tiny anxieties all look the same from this height. Small points of light in a vast, sleeping landscape. The story is over, its lessons learned, its ghosts laid to rest. And now, there is only the quiet of the journey inward, towards the peaceful realm of your own dreams. The path is clear, the way is soft. There is nothing left to do but to let go, then drift and sleep. The end of the article. Good night.